Our protagonist was reminiscing about his life in a lush green forest, as what he thought would be a laid-back camping trip turned into a full survival camp. He wonders if it's gonna be alright, and in the middle of this unsettling environment, he thankfully had this reliable skill of his backing him up, which was craft gear. He just wanted to explore more of this world and eat some good food. He went back to think of the time when it all began, where in his previous life, he used to be a 35-year-old corporate guy who moved to Tokyo in hope for a life-changing work. But instead, he was stuck in a life cycle of a painful body, overworking office hours, and an exhausting repeating schedule with no room for hobbies or enjoyment. One day was on his way home like usual, and he was in a state of semi-consciousness. He didn't notice the truck until the moment of impact, after which everything went blank before his eyes. But somehow he was able to hear a sound, assuring him there's nothing to worry about. Sojiro realized he was hearing the voice of the goddess, and she calmly explained his body was destroyed and he died. But Sojiro asked, "Don't people's souls disappear when they die?" The goddess replied it should be obvious with his example as he was still present somewhere. She joked a bit, then in all seriousness told him that once he did something kind for her by picking up a statue of her from the ground and putting it back in the shrine. That action led him to connect with the goddess, and since he was a very good and kind child, she would be pained to see him vanish just like that. So she wanted to give him another chance at a new life, and Sojiro wondered if it was like starting a new game. She mentioned there were some worlds she could send him to, but she wanted to know what he wanted. Sojiro thought for a long time about what exactly he wanted and replied he wished to live leisurely. He didn't want anything that would remind him of the exhausting life he had before he died. And by living leisurely, he doesn't just mean to only exist, but eat good food and have lots of things to enjoy along with his leisure life. Like the life of a camper who enjoys his life while exploring and crafting things. And it should be somewhere with not much crowds either. Goddess remarked that was a great wish and she knows just the right word for him. She granted him the blessing of craft gear skill and told him he would have 2 powers with this. After explaining it to him, she also added he could store the gear he crafts in sub-dimensional space and store and call it out whenever he wants. Sojiro thanked her for what she was doing for him, and with that she sent him to the other world right away, wishing him a great life ahead. She mentioned her name was Anna, the mother goddess, and granted him her divine blessing, the craft gear, which would help him achieve both power and happiness. She told him to make sure to enjoy his life happily, as she was using the last bit of her powers on him. Sojiro was confused why she was doing that, but the next moment, he was born into another world and woke up in the midst of a forest. Sojiro decided to see what it's like here, and surprisingly, this body of his was feeling too light as compared to the past. In a long time, he didn't feel tired, instead his body was filled with lots of stamina. He didn't expect to get so many other perks along with getting the divine blessing from the goddess, and now he wanted to check out the divine tool he was given. He activated craft gear skill, and the next moment, something materialized in his hand and formed a dagger. Sojiro figured it was a success, and even storing the dagger was pretty easy. Sojiro thought it was cool, like those heroes in the anime. Next, head to figure out where he was, and even though there wasn't a crowd like he wanted, it was kinda too silent as if not a single human lives around here. He used craft gear to summon the dagger again, and it's time for some camping while surviving monsters in this world. He took a breath and prepared himself to get moving, since talking won't get him anywhere. What he could do now was to grasp the current situation and his own abilities. He recalls being told his divine tool could transform, and if he leaves it far away, it would come back as well. So he decided to try it out right away. He began imagining another tool than a dagger, and in a few moments his dagger transformed for real. It means the goddess was right about the tool being able to turn into anything he imagines in his mind, and right now, he had it transformed into an axe. Sojiro was feeling cool over the shape-changing tool, and since he didn't know how strong it was, he aimed at a tree in front of him and threw the axe at it with all the strength he could muster. To his surprise, the axe hit the tree so hard, the tree broke down in just one blow and began falling. And an even more shocking part was that the tree was falling straight in his direction. Sojiro could not believe it, and he didn't want to die on his very first day like this. Out of panic, he shouted at the tree to wait, and the next moment, it really did freeze right above his head. Sojiro didn't expect that would work for real, and he survived somehow. Sojiro remembered his second power was to fix things in place. Like if he were to make a birdhouse, for example, he would need to secure the board cut while cutting with another hand, or nail it by using another hand to hold the board. So for times like that, this skill would come in handy since he could fix anything anywhere. And if he fixes a board in space, he could just craft things without having to use nails and attach with this skill. He could also release it if he wants, so it's like he could fix time and space for an object touched by his divine tool. While the goddess doesn't think it's a big deal, Saojiro knows full well how amazing it is to manipulate space and time. After her explanation, Saojiro was back to his current situation, and he spotted his axe from before. He retrieved it with skill and transformed it back to a dagger, fearing its overwhelming power. Now he decided to make a staff for himself, which would act as a sensor on uneven ground, and also check for snakes before walking forward blindly around bushes. First, he snapped it in half with a knife, and it was done in an instant as if he sliced butter. He knew this tool here should be handled with extreme care, then he continued and ended up bringing out a good shape of the stick with its surface peeled off. He also made a handle separately, then attached it to the stick with fixing skill. The stick was prepared now, and he kinda wanted to check out the power of the stick. He swung it around hitting trees and walls, and the stick was as good as solid stone. He could still process the parts of the staff and undo the fix to remove handles and then reattach them. Now he knows for sure that with these amazingly sharp knives and axes and the fixing skills, this craft gear was really something worthy to be called divine, and he could manage surviving with their help. He walked further into the forest, and his next step was to find water since humans would die in 3 days without it. Also, he didn't want to get lost, so he needed to find a place that's easy to spot and could be used as a landmark. He was glad he wasn't feeling tired even after walking so much, which must be due to goddess blessing. Saojiro was enjoying his freedom, although his stomach wasn't enjoying much since it was hungry. After some exploration, Saojiro found it unbelievable that he managed to find a river so easily. It solved the water problem for him, but since he wasn't thirsty right now, he won't get water and build a shelter first. And while at it, build a bed as well. He found a good flat spot, gathered materials, and tied them with fixing skill. Next up, he designed the frame and covered it with more branches and leaves on top to protect it from rain. Inside, he made a bed with branches and leaves to preserve body heat, which would have been drained endlessly by ground. With this, his shelter was completed, and now that he made something, he was reminded again how great craft gear skill was. Even without arm strength or a saw, all the work was done efficiently without consuming any stamina. On top of that, he hasn't rested yet and has been working continuously, yet he doesn't feel tired at all. Saojiro then saw a monster rabbit behind him with a horn on its head. He wondered if it was dangerous or not, but the moment the rabbit saw him, Saojiro sensed danger and raised his staff reflexively to block the incoming sudden attack by the horned rabbit. Then out of panic, he activated craft gear and fixed the staff in place, which ended up freezing the rabbit's position along with it. The rabbit was hovering with its stuck horn, trying to release it but to no use. Saojiro was glad he used his brains there and stayed on guard instinctively, as he read once that any animal in the mountains was hostile. Thanks to that knowledge, he was able to calm down and take immediate action there, and his light body helped him follow the movements in time. He was thankful to the goddess for giving this body to him and also thankful for today's meal as well. The rabbit could feel goosebumps, seeing the man pray there before eating him. Saojiro looked at the rabbit, which was making a cute face trying to gain his pity. But Saojiro knew better not to fall for that, and was gonna butcher it anyway since he was hungry too. He dismantled the rabbit with the dagger, following the butchering process, and thankfully there doesn't seem to be a poison pouch or anything dangerous. The only strange thing in it was the heart, which was different from rabbits back in his previous world. He washed the rabbit's skin to prevent spoiling, and right at that time he heard something nearby. Saojiro looked there and saw it was a cute dog. Since he was a dog lover, he called out the cute adorable puppy and asked if it was lost. He didn't think there was any other presence nearby, so this dog was alone. He got an idea and offered some of the meat to the dog, and after it smelled it, the dog began eating something from the box. Saojiro noticed the dog had a ribbon around its neck, which means it was a pet. Then some sounds started coming from the forest, and the dog got alerted. The dog barked once and ran away without stopping, while Saojiro tried to. He wondered whose pet it could have been, and noticed that the dog only ate the heart and left other meat untouched. Right then, the noise from earlier grew louder, which startled Saojiro, and he saw someone was standing on a branch. It was an elf girl with a bow in her hands, seemingly confused after seeing him here. And so was Saojiro, since he had never seen an elf before. The elf girl asked him if he saw a puppy around here. Saojiro understood she must be the owner of that dog. But before he could answer, she saw the meat and thought he ate the puppy. Saojiro told her it's a misunderstanding. He didn't do anything to it, and the dog headed in another direction a few moments ago. She was relieved to hear that and apologized for doubting him. Now she needed to chase the dog, so she left right away in a hurry. He wished her good luck and she went away, jumping from one branch to another. Saojiro never expected the day to come he would see an elf, and now he went back to his work to cook up a meal for himself. He managed to light a fire after gathering the right materials and crafting a fire-starting tool like ancient times. And because his crafting skill was a high-level one, he succeeded in lighting fire on his first try. He was going to boil animal hide now, and as for the pot, he made it with tree bark sliced in thin layers and attached to each other in layers, then soaked in water for a bit. He used the tree bark also to make a string to tie it to the fire. He boiled some water and drank it, after which came the main part, to finally cook the meat. He roasted the meat with smoking charcoal embers on a stone slab, which wasn't hard to make since he could cut even stones with the dagger. After grilling the meat, he placed the final dish steak on a wooden platter and prayed before eating. The meat was soft to cut, and as he began eating it, just chewing it a little was enough to spread the delicious taste of the near in his whole mouth. And everything from meat juices to tenderness was just perfect and better than any meat he ate in the previous world. He can't stop but keeps eating it while cooking some more meat he had. Sojiro ate to his heart's content and didn't think saving any meat was worth it. He might as well try all parts. The moist air of the forest, the warm heat of the bonfire, and the sound of flames without being disturbed by anyone. He longed for this very moment and wondered how long it had been since eating felt this much fun. Now, after eating till he was full, he ended up saving some of the meat anyway, and it should last him for a while. He recalled the ways of survival in the wild, depending on having a place to maintain body temperature for a few hours, have water for 2 days, and have food that would last for a while. If these were not met, one had a high possibility of dying in the wild. Thankfully, Sojiro was able to prepare everything on the very first day, and thanks to craft gear, he didn't have to worry about utensils or tools to survive. He then heard the sound of barking and saw it was the same dog from earlier. He wondered why the dog was here, which means the elf girl hadn't been able to find him yet. The dog was surely cute and he wanted to adore it, as it also seems that the dog has gotten attached to him somehow. He slowly reached out his hand towards the dog, and the dog smelled him and memorized it. After that, he asked if the dog wanted to have more meat, and while it was eating, Sojiro decided to help the dog look for its owner. For now, he went to sleep, with the cute dog sleeping on his chest. The next morning, Sojiro recalled things he should do on his second day in this world, including looking for the owner of this dog here. On his way here, he marked trees with the dagger, to make sure he didn't get lost. Also, now that he thinks about it, that elf girl was alone, which makes him wonder if there were more elves around. Soon, the dog picked up some sounds with his sharp ears and jumped down from Sojiro's shoulder, then started barking randomly. Sojiro wondered what's wrong, while the dog began running in a direction, as if it wanted Sojiro to follow him. Sojiro followed the dog, wondering if something was up ahead, and when he was looking in that direction, a beast's roar echoed from there. Sojiro thought these roars indicate there's a fight going on, and since sounds were not like a normal beast fight, he understood the opponent of those beasts must be that elf girl. He followed the sounds, and upon reaching there saw a large bird was fighting a small shadow. The bird's sharp claws were aiming for the little figure, and the elf girl used her magic to counter-attack the bird with a fire spell. She thought it was a pain to fight in this situation, then the dog barked from the side, which caught both the elf girl and bird monster's condition. Sojiro waved at the bird to distract it, and the bird took the bait and attacked him. He transformed the divine tool into a hammer and throwed it at the bird, thinking he would fix it in place the moment it made contact with the bird. But as the hammer flew ahead and made contact with the bird, the impact was unbelievably powerful, which sent the bird flying away to the back. Sojiro was trying to fix it in place, but before he could activate the skill, the bird was already dead, while the hammer remained fixed in mid-air. He was reminded once again how dangerous this tool was, and he gotta get used to its strength. The elf girl greeted him and expressed how surprised she was to see he defeated a storm griffin in one hit. Sojiro stated it's been a day since they met, and the dog went to her. She waved back to him and was wondering what was a human doing out here in these forests, or was he a war god who descended here? While she was talking, all Sojiro could notice was her naked body, covered with only a thin towel. She claimed to have been attacked by Griffin while bathing. Sojiro apologized to her for interrupting and said he was just a human, but she doesn't think so since no ordinary human could pull that off. Sojiro mentioned it's just a lot for that, but first, he wanted her to use his jacket to cover. She thanked him for being considerate. She was also feeling nervous about her state. The elf told him she didn't have any weapons on her since she was bathing, so she was kinda in a bind when that beast attacked. He was a real lifesaver, and she would like to repay this debt. He didn't mind and told her it was actually thanks to the dog here who brought him here and also helped him sleep warmly last night. The elf girl mentioned this puppy was abandoned by its parents, so she picked it up, and to think she was saved by him was unexpected. She called the puppy a lucky charm, and now she introduced herself as Mischa, a high elf who lives in this forest of the divine tree. She asked him who he was, and our protagonist introduced himself back to her, adding that he arrived in this forest just yesterday. After that, she went to get her clothes and weapons, and after changing, Saojiro told her she was beautiful. Mischa blushed and asked if he was a womanizer or something to be so good with his words. He told her he was just honest, in which case she thanked him. She then mentioned that other than clothes, her other stuff seemed to have been ransacked by monsters and nothing else remained. Saojiro asked if her village was nearby, he could escort her, but she replied there wasn't one nearby and her village was actually far away. But she has been living in this forest for about 11 years now. He was curious if she had some kind of situation. Mr. replied it wasn't like that, and she left it a long time ago. She was just living in this forest out of her own stubbornness. Actually, this place was blessed by the elven ancestors and called the Forest of the Divine Tree. But their elf descendants were no longer able to live here at some point. She went close to a tree, explaining that there were so many creatures and trees that were only found here in the whole world. This was a forest untouched by anyone for 1,000 years, and her job was to find a way to use this place. Saojiro asked her why it was untouched for that long. She was shocked he didn't know and decided to just show it to him. She tried to stab a tree with her short sword, but it only left a thin scratch. Mischa showed him that, saying the trees here are as hard as a stone, and it's the same with monsters and plants, too strong compared to the normal ones. Apparently this forest was created by progenitors of the Age of Gods and was once sustained by divine treasures. But greedy ones plundered those things during the Age of War and were gradually lost. Saojiro was kinda curious, so he took out his dagger and tried scratching the tree like her, but his dagger went through it like no biggie. It happened so casually as if it was a natural thing, and Mischa also tried to pierce the tree with her dagger, putting a lot of force while maintaining a poker smile. Saojiro knew she was trying to show her strength, and when she couldn't do it normally, she resisted using full strength and pushed the dagger desperately. But even after that, she could only manage to stab 1/3 of her dagger into the tree. Whereas Saojiro's dagger was all the way in. Mischa broke down, admitting her defeat strength-wise, then Saojiro told her he could do it only because of this tool. She listened to him as he told her about his story of how he arrived here. She was shocked to learn he was one of those sacred ones and apologized for not knowing that before. He thought he should apologize for being ignorant, as he didn't know that in this world, those who received powers of divine tools from goddess directly were called sacred ones. They were worshipped like priests or clergy. Saojiro told her to keep talking to him casually, no need to be too formal. Mischa figured doing just that, and he asked if she knew where to find salt. Fortunately, she did, and offered to get it for him. Saojiro was glad since having salt would change a lot of things, because salt changes the whole taste of food, and his goal was to enjoy as many flavors and tastes as he could. He was sorry to be a burden on her for a bit. Mischa assured she didn't mind at all, and reminded him he saved her life before, so she would surely want to repay him however she could. After that, she went to get salt and some more stuff, while Saojiro decided to wait here for her. He was honestly impressed by how he could remain normal, even when so many things happened one after another, and he wished to say thanks to the goddess for everything. Now he was excited to cook up his first meal with salt in another world. After gathering ingredients, he washed them thoroughly and soaked them in water. And so far, he collected herbs which looked edible and similar to the ones he knew from the previous world. He tried some of them yesterday as well to see if they were safe to eat, and since nothing happened to him, it was a green signal. But he was unaware he had been blessed with a special body by the goddess, so any harmful effects would have been neutralized. Soon, Mr. returned to him and asked if he was cooking something. He nodded and mentioned having caught a rabbit for some meat, and he could cook for her as well for some salt in exchange. She agreed and gave him a rock salt. Saojiro really appreciated her help, and she promised to do more for him to repay later. And aside from that, she mentioned she could only use some daggers and magic for a while, so she might be inconvenient in fighting. He asked if there wasn't some town nearby, but the problem was she didn't have any money. She lost everything she could have traded in that ransack. And with having to take care of this little puppy, she couldn't do much right now for it either. She apologized if leaving it to him was a burden, but he was fine since he likes dogs. Mischa thought he was a good guy, but he didn't think he's as good as her. She then asked him if he was going to boil the rabbit, to which he agreed and said he would make broth with it. He would use rabbit's spine and rib meat for broth by first blanching it, then removing scum while it boils, and once the exquisite smell is drawn out, he would remove the bones and use the clear surface layer for soup. He wishes he could strain, but it can't be helped right now. However, Mischa was confused about something else and asked him what was broth and soup. Saojiro was shocked she doesn't know that and said she would get to know it since he's cooking for her. She couldn't wait to eat it, since the excitement of eating an unfamiliar dish was great. Moreover, she mentioned the fact he caught a horned rabbit by himself was impressive, because it's hard to catch and even nobles would be thrilled by its meat. Saojiro asked her what she would have done if she caught one. She replied she would probably just roast it whole and make a feast out of it. Saojiro can't imagine eating meat like that and figured he should cook fast. He told Mischa she could play for a bit while he's busy, so he went to play with the dog. Meanwhile, Saojiro was kinda feeling bad for these guys to not know of such amazing dishes, and he knows many since he was from a country known for its variety of dishes. When the meal was completed, he served the broth, along with the seasonings he could gather from around the forest. Mischa was thrilled, as she had never seen such a beautiful soup before. She tasted a bit of soup and gave her feedback that it was really delicious. She hadn't tasted something this good in over 100 years, and Saojiro was glad for her. Now he also sat down to eat, and he had to admit, salt changed the whole vibe of the meat, making the dish overall tastier. Back in Japan, this dish would have become a gourmet frenzy. While he was enjoying his meal, Mr. remarked that this must be their lucky day to get such a proper and delicious meal. He looked at her cheerful and genuine smile, which made him feel better as well, and he admitted it was surely a lucky day. She then asked Saojiro to give this puppy a name since it doesn't have one yet. Saojiro wonders why she asked him for that. Mischa figured being named by a sacred one would make the puppy's name more meaningful. In that case, he thought of naming the puppy as Mac, which was the name of a famous horse back in Japan, and it also has a famous lore, that a guy named Marta Toshimasa tricked his uncle into a cold bath and stole his horse named Mac. Saojiro can't reveal that he got this idea from when Mischa was attacked during her bath, so all he told her was that it was the name of a famous horse. She and Mac liked the name, then he asked her if there's anything they could use from Storm Griffin, like meat or something. Mischa replied they could eat the meat, but it was known to have a really bad smell, and its claws and magic stone might be of some use. Saojiro asked her what's magic stone. She explained it was like the core of a monster, formed inside their heart once they become strong enough. They are pretty valuable, so she advised him to store them whenever possible. She went and harvested a magic stone from Griffin and showed him how it looks, although this one was completely shattered. Saojiro figured he should go for the head next time since his hammer was the one to shatter this stone. She told him to be careful, some monsters won't die that easily, and asked if she could feed these magic stones to Mac. He wondered if that would be alright for him. She mentioned he might be small, but he would need to take in a lot of mana to grow. Saojiro realized Mac must have eaten the stone that time too when he offered the rabbit to him. Next, she told him that Griffin's claws were said to have purifying powers, so if he soaks them in water, he could avoid stomachache issues. And if he washes his hands with it, they heal faster. If one pierce raw meat with it, it is preserved for weeks. Saojiro asked if he could have half of claws then. She didn't mind him having it all, but he mentioned it's just to be cautious. Because if one of them loses theirs, they could help another later. She thought it was a good plan, and unlike her, Saojiro figured Mac didn't seem to be wanting to share meat from Griffin. Mischa mentioned she needed to set up a new base soon, but if it's okay with him, she would like to build it near his. Since Mac was also attached to him, she wanted to see him often. Saojiro thought there was no real reason to refuse, but parting ways with Mac would be a bit sad. He thought Mischa had been a huge help, and she also wished for him to have a peace of mind when she's around. Since he was a human from another world and might not know and be surprised by many things here. So if she's with him, he would have someone to rely on and explain things for him. She promised to be right beside him and support him. His worries were eased upon hearing that confident remark from her and agreed sure, it'd be great if she would support him from now on. She recalled how he was surprised upon seeing her. Saojiro nodded. It was indeed his first time seeing an elf. Mischa claimed to have been just as surprised, because seeing a human was really a big deal out here. She guessed they were the same then. They laughed together, and Saojiro wondered how long it's been since he laughed out loud like this. She found this situation a way lot better than being alone, and Saojiro was reminded again he was reborn for real and had also made a true friend. Everything just changed so drastically that he hasn't caught up yet, and wishes this moment of happiness could stop for a moment. Due to the unforeseen future, he was hesitant, worried that anything could happen and these good times might not last long like previous life. But he wanted to trust her and asked her to stay near him. He wanted to accept these changes slowly to live this life to the fullest. She agreed with him, having no second thoughts there, and Mac was also there to make their happy moments more enjoyable. Later, he recalled what happened so far, with Mischa's base being destroyed by monsters, and he didn't want to go back to the shelter he made, since it was temporary anyway. They found a good spot and decided to build a new base. and she took the task to look around for monsters and set up monster repellents, while asking him not to cut any trees with marks on them. He suggested why don't he make a building first, to be used as a center for monster repellent magic. She asked if he was sure since that's the hardest part, but he assured it would be easy to handle with Divine Tool's help, and the two of them could build things faster. She decided to go with his suggestion and asked to let her know if she could do anything. She looked around while leaving him to his work, and now he began with the first task, leveling the land. He dug the ground with a shovel, then used a leveler to make it even, and with that the groundwork was laid successfully. Now he had to gather building materials, so he went to a tree and first made an undercut, which would determine where it would fall. But since he still wasn't used to using an overpowered axe, he ended up cutting it whole from the top point of the pivot, which ended up making the tree fall in his direction. He stopped it with his fixing skill and continued on getting more wood while practicing. By the time Mischa came back, she was surprised he was already done with logs, making her wonder if he used magic or something. He told her she was the only magic user among them, but she didn't think even with magic she could do it. She was nervous now, wondering if there's anything she could really help with. He asked her to help him carry the logs to the campsite then. Sojiro and Mischa carried the logs together and placed them all in the spot where the house would be built. She asked what's next, to which he replied first they would have to build an entrance, then build the sides with split logs. While doing that, he fixed logs in the air to use as stairs, and she thought it was kinda strange and funny. Sojiro was also finding it hilarious himself, since it was like a game glitch. Next, he made the ceiling of the house by laying logs and applying bark sheets on top of them. He also added some more materials to strengthen the roof, completing the whole house process. Although he hadn't thought of what to do about the lighting, it was dark in here. Mischa helped him by using light magic, and he wished he could use it too. Mischa pointed out she could barely sense any magic from him, so he might not be able to use magic at all. Sojiro looked down after hearing that, and she comforted him that using divine tools was plenty useful. Next, I made a hole in the house and stacked stone and soil to build a fireplace. This way, they could warm up by the fire and also do some cooking without going outside. After that, he dug a ditch around the house to divert rainwater to other areas, and figured for now it should be enough. Mac came to play with him, and when he saw him, he decided to take a break and wash up for now. After washing themselves, he rested by the river, enjoying his feet hanging in the cold water. Mischa called him out and said she found some good soil for further building uses, and since they were gonna make 2 houses, they would need to move quickly. But before that, she decided to take a break and sat right beside Sojiro. Sojiro found it hard to take eyes off her beautiful legs, while she was playing with water and said she would do her best to help him. But he thinks her magical light alone was super helpful. She doesn't think so, while Sojiro figured having a light for brightness was better than a campfire in every way. However, he did not want to make her feel guilty by doing most of the work alone. She remarked that crafting things with him was really fun, and in that moment she whispered his name from up close, which created a little tension in Sojiro's heart due to the close distance. But turns out she only wanted to say she used that wooden scoop for the first time. He corrected her that it was a shovel, but from what she knows, shovels look like small one-handed tools. He told her that's a scoop actually, so to correct, a scoop was a shovel and a shovel was a scoop. She seemed confused. Sojiro found it funny and chuckled. She hit his head for laughing at her, but he couldn't help it, and figured they might have different names for tools depending on the region. After that, he told her it's time for the soil work. He mixed clay, dried grass, and sand with water until the texture was right to craft a crude mortar. Then applied the mixture to the outer walls of the house to seal out the drafts. For now, he used a makeshift door with a bark sheet, which concluded today's work, leaving them with 2 houses to stay for the night. She was excited since this wasn't something that could be built in one day normally. Mischa asked if she could really live here too. He agreed since she helped him a lot, and to live here better, he figured he should make a proper bed. Mischa was flustered as she found it suspicious because in this world, humans say that a man who is picky about beds spends too much time at brothels. Sojiro denied being a pervert like that, after which they went to their respective houses. But later, she came to his house asking if he was still awake. Sojiro was and allowed her in. She came because she forgot to turn off the light, and figured she should do it since he got asleep. Sojiro wanted to stay up a little longer, which made her curious if he was making something. He replied it's nothing special, just something he felt like he should. Sojiro was crafting a statue of the goddess, and Mischa asked if this was the goddess he met. The statue of the goddess looked really beautiful, but Sojiro mentioned he never saw the face of the goddess. He could just feel his hands move while hearing her voice. Mischa understood as much of his interpretation then, but still it was lovely, and she figures the goddess would be pleased. He hoped so, then Mischa asked him if he knew the name of the goddess. Saojiro replied it was Anna, the mother goddess and the founder deity. Mischa tried to recall the name but never heard of her before. She wondered if an older elf might know something. Saojiro stated something else spoken by the goddess, that she used the last of her powers on him. Which makes him think if she had chosen someone with greater ambition, maybe more people would have come to know her. Saojiro believed his wish was a small thing, so it makes him all the more confused if he was the right person to be blessed. Mischa sensed his doubts and told him that the goddess must have been a strong goddess. When Saojiro asked why, she replied it's because instead of ambition or fame, the goddess chose his kindness. And she must have always made choices like that, even when she was about to fade away without abandoning her beliefs. Saojiro was thinking of it her way now, as Mischa thinks what goddess did showed her strength, making her a strong and gentle goddess. Saojiro looked at the statue at hand again and recalled that the goddess hoped his life would be filled with blessings. So if he starts to overthink everything, it might not be what she wanted for him. Mischa also thinks the goddess likes someone like him, which means she got good taste. He wondered if that's so. Mischa agreed, after which he finished the status and placed it on an elevated place. Then prayed to the goddess for a bit. Mischa remarked he was really good at this, and he thanked her for keeping him company. Now she could dim the light as he was about to sleep. After setting the light to fade, Mischa prayed to the goddess and left, wishing Saojiro good night and thanking him for building this house. He wished her back and also thanked for her help. Saojiro always wanted to eat delicious food in a place where he could really enjoy it, and now thanks to the goddess, he achieved it. He was really thankful to the goddess for that, and starting tomorrow, he decided to take it easy and focus on enhancing the campsite. The next morning, he received the first surprise in the morning, when Mischa asked him if he wanted to take a bath together, leaving him all shy and flustered. A little while ago, when he woke up in the morning, Saojiro didn't think the sleep was deep, probably because he wasn't that tired. Max started cuddling with him to get him up from the bed, and he went to wash his face right away. Mischa thought he was a morning person, but he replied it's just Mac woke him up. He noticed the water storage had really clean water, thanks to the purifying effect of Griffin's Claw. He wanted to wash his body with this water, and when Mischa heard him, she asked if he wanted to bathe together. He was surprised by the sudden extravagant offer and asked her if she was joking. She asked if he was the type to boil water once a week and bathe. He corrected that he was an everyday type, in which case she thought then they should bathe together. Apparently, by bathing together, she meant that one of them would stay on watch for monsters, while the other person would take bath. She invited him because she trusted him, which made him happy, and guess it's normal to be worried about safety. After that, she went to bathe in the river with a towel on, and while she was in the midst of it, Saojiro was glad to have perfect eyesight after reincarnating. Once she was done with the bath, she changed and handed him the towel for his turn, while she handled the laundry. He was a bit startled to be handed the same towel she used, and she mentioned they just had one towel so she offered it to him. But the thought this towel was used to wipe that beautiful body, he can't help but get some bold thoughts. Then he saw her using wind magic to dry off, which was pretty convenient. She pointed out he was surprised by any kind of magic, and apparently she could use this wind magic to also dry the clothes right away. He decided to just go and bathe now. After entering the river, he figured he could use his own shirt to wipe his body later, then have it dried by Mischa. He was feeling really good in the cold water, and the bath did not take long. After the safe bath, Saojiro cooked up breakfast for them. She asked him what he was gonna do today, to which he replied having thought of making this place more livable. He wanted to make furniture for the house and also do some hunting. Mischa took the task for hunting and figured she would train Mac while she's at it. She noticed he was working on something. Saojiro replied he was making table and chairs first, and that too at a height Mac could not mess with. And so he went on to make a table, but before that he would make another table to make a table, like a cross stand. He imagined how the designs should be and crafted the legs and feet first. After that he joined the cross sections and lastly added the flat surface to it, completing the cross stand. He figured if he disassembled the cross stand, he won't have trouble finding a place to store it. Next, he had to make a table and chairs, then some cushions, shelves, and more. He wished he had a pen and paper to note it all down. Saojiro started making chairs first, and with whole concentration it was a smooth and quick process. It didn't take long to finish the dining set, and now they could eat like civilized people. At the same time, Mischa came and told him to look at something amazing, having a silky moth in her hands. Saojiro was shocked by the giant moth, and she told her it was a rude reaction to seeing a spirit beast who came all the way for him. Saojiro didn't know what they were, so Mischa explained spirit beasts were a little different from ordinary creatures, in short for his understanding, rare beasts. She mentioned it just came fluttering over and landed on Saojiro's house, and the friendly behavior suggested it wanted to live here. Saojiro asked if they could communicate with it. She replied they can't have proper conversation, but she could somehow understand its will since she's a high elf. The spirit moth flew and landed on the table, then as if getting Saojiro's attention, it began casting something like a magic spell. Some threads began forming from it, and the moth weaved the threads to create a fabric. It offered the fabric to our protagonist, and he could see the spirit moth was kind of meaning to stay here by proving its helpful skill to make clothes. Saojiro couldn't ask for more since they really needed clothes, and now the spirit beast solved the issue for them. He was thankful the spirit moth joined them, and the moth gave a reaction as if to say nice to meet him. Mr. and Saojiro liked the soft skin of the moth, and he was glad to have one more companion. But Mac didn't seem all that pleased, so Saojiro told him to get along with it. He also paid attention to Mac by petting him, then Mr. recommended Saojiro to name the spirit beast. He thought about it and named it Musubai, which used to be the name of the goddess of weaving in Japan. He was glad to meet Musubai, and Musubai seemed just as happy. Now he could use the cloth and he was able to make more things. At this time, Saojiro didn't realize that he had committed a terrible mistake. He was recalling the changes that had happened so far since morning, and they not only got a new companion, but could also enjoy their meals in peace. Everything seemed to be going all great, until he felt the immediate need of something and stood up shouting. Mischa asked him what happened to him. He claimed to have remembered something really important he needed to make. He quickly went over to craft something without speaking further, and even denied any help. Mischa was feeling curious about just what he was going to make, which was so important, while Saojiro couldn't feel any more dumb for forgetting such an important thing, forgetting basic priorities in life. After he prepared the building materials, he laid them on the table, leaving only physical labor now. For some time, he was busy digging a deep and wide hole into the ground, about 50 meters deep, after which he laid the foundation around the hole with stones. Then he built a structure on top of the foundation, added some walls, and a shed was completed in a few moments. He could not risk making just any structure, since it had to be meticulous because this was important. Once the structure was done, he cut a hole into the floor, then set up a smooth log shaped like a toilet bowl. It was pretty obvious now what he was making, as he finished crafting the toilet by adding the lid at last, along with a water pot and soap replacement leaves. And after adding the final fabric in place of toilet rolls, he was done with the toilet. This toilet was pretty urgent to make, for obvious reasons, so he was pretty detailed while making it. He doesn't understand why he didn't make it before, and since this one won't have any troubles for a while, he planned on observing it before making any chances in waste burial. Now, he had to test it out right away. After doing the deed, Saojiro was all relaxed, and later on he explained it to Mischa. She curiously checked out the toilet and the door and meticulous work inside. And after trying it, she was amazed he made it in such a short time. With that, the toilet problem was solved, and he also made one for Mac. The next day, something strange happened when he was working on something as usual and saw that Musubai had brought someone along with her. It was a mole-like monster, and from the obvious body structure and claws, Saojiro immediately thought of an armadillo. The monster seemed to be expressing something to him, but he had no idea what it was trying to convey. At that time, Mischa came and was surprised to see another legendary creature. She figured it's becoming a normal thing around Saojiro, and he learned from her that it's a spirit beast as well. She explained it's a spirit beast called Riddles, and it makes really good soil. The speciality of this spirit beast was farming and digging holes, and Saojiro was amazed this guy too could use magic. He decided to name him Yukutama, which used to be the name of a god of harvest in Japan. Yukutama seemed to be saying something, and Mischa told Saojiro that it was saying that it wanted to take care of some plants by redirecting the toilet waste to plant nutrients. Saojiro liked the idea of having Yukutama handle composting, although he wondered what he could feed the guy in return for help. Musubai eats only leaves and saltwater, and from what Mischa recalls, Riddles eat trees, water, and fruits. Saojiro figured since they had plenty of trees, it should be fine, and as for fruit, he might find some in the forest. Mischa mentioned Yukutama wanted to grow fruits itself, which would greatly increase Saojiro's self-sufficiency. It also means Yukutama would need some land, so it's time for him to use the shovel to prepare the farming land. First, he went to an area where stumps were left after he cut trees earlier. And to remove stumps, he needed to dig the area around them and pull them out. But since he doesn't have any heavy machinery, doing it manually would be a headache, since he would have to cut the roots off, then pull out the stump with a lot of strength. Since this process was annoying, he had been putting it off until now so he won't have to deal with it. But thanks to all the work so far, he learned that he might be able to use craft gear to handle this, by first using the overpowered shovel, then transforming the divine tool into a chain block. He figured he wouldn't need to set up anything like stands or tripods, since he could just fix it in mid-air, then fix the hook directly into the stump without needing anything else. With that done, he just gave a slight pull to the chain and the stump was lifted like a pebble. It was surprisingly way easier than he expected, even with divine powers, but well, he guessed he might have not even experienced half the strength of his powers, given how all the jobs were handled so easily. He worked continuously on removing the stumps, and in a few hours he was able to remove all the stumps and level the ground. He told Yukutama that the land was now ready to be turned into a garden, and the small guy got to work right away. Saojiro figured he would work on something else till then, and after some crafts, decided to take a little break and relax. He wondered how Yukutama was doing, so he decided to check it out. He went over to the field and saw it was all already done, but Yukutama didn't seem to be on the field right now. He spotted him eating wood in the side, taking a break as well. Saojiro told the little guy if he wanted anything, he could let him know anytime. Things seem to be done pretty fast now, and Saojiro has made considerable progress while unlocking more possible options. He decided to divide tasks, with Musubai handling tanning the hide and give the organs and bone to Yukutama for using them as fertilizer. He was glad nothing would go to waste anymore, and Mac seemed to be getting along with them as well. And come to think of it, he has been surprisingly coming across pretty rare creatures one after another. He asked Mischa if she got a clue why this was happening, to which she replied they were most likely being attracted to his divine aura. It's natural for the Sacred One to have divine energy dwelling within their body. He confirmed with her it wasn't a bad thing, and she assured it's not, but in fact it's the opposite. And events like this would keep on following him in the future as well. She told him not to forget that the very first rare creature he met was herself, a high elf. Saojiro was convinced if this was the kind of fate he got, he was all up for seeing things through. And he was really happy that Mischa was here with him. As he said that with a smile, Mischa felt a little shy and had no clue how to respond. Saojiro also thinks with more of them, the food was sure to taste better as well. Later on that day, Mischa ended up hunting down a huge demon boar for them, and claimed she coincidentally happened to have found that beast and defeated it. Saojiro liked this life with one good thing after another. Meanwhile, in the Adventurers Guild in the nearest town from Forest, a person in a dark hood went over to the reception. The receptionist asked them to show their guild card, and after taking a look at the card, her eyes were wide open in amazement, because this person in front of her was a famous name, Ayano of the Black Sea Guild. Her loud voice caught the attention of everyone else, and they didn't expect the infamous Ayano to be such a small, scrawny figure in person. However, the looks could be deceiving, since that person was the royal court's personal mage. They wondered what she was doing out here, and the receptionist questioned the same, what brought Ayano here. Ayano declared that she was currently heading to the forest of the divine tree. The next day, Saojiro noticed they would run out of salt soon, so he asked Mischa where she got the salt from. She gathered it from the downstream and thought if they were going to gather stuff, they should stock up in things other than salt as well. She mentioned there was actually a human town in the downstream, so he should come as well. Saojiro didn't know about the town till now. Mischa mentioned she always gathers stuff up here, then sells it into the town and buys stuff from the traded money. The moment she mentioned the town has pepper as well, Saojiro wanted to go there no matter what, since getting pepper was also important for his future meals. But he doesn't think he has anything to sell either. She told him it would be fine, considering it's him after all. And thus, they decided to head downstream to the town, taking Musubai with them and leaving Yukutama and Mac behind to look after the house. On the way, she told him it usually takes 3 whole days to reach the town, so they would arrive on the morning of the 4th. Saojiro thought it was surely long, but Mischa didn't think so since high elves have their own way of judging time. She sensed something and told him a monster was coming from the right, appearing in a few seconds. Saojiro knew the road to town wouldn't be simple, and they were attacked by a horned rabbit. Saojiro was prepared with a hammer, but then the rabbit was already defeated by the thread shot from Musubai. Both of them had to admit that spirit beasts were really strong, even though they look fluffy and cute. On the way, Mischa would detect any monsters approaching them and assure that they won't be ambushed by many at once. They moved cautiously forward, while fighting off the monsters they could not avoid. She then sensed a big one next and alerted him to be extra careful. This time it was a snake monster with 2 heads, and Saojiro was kinda afraid seeing how huge that monster was. He calmed down his nervously beating heart and prepared to proceed as planned. First, he would draw the attention of the monster, and while it was distracted, Mischa would jump in from its blind spot and take out one head of the monster, then burn it with fire magic. After one head was down, her role was done. And when the snake went after her with the other head, she didn't need to do anything, since it was Sojiro role to smash the other head with his hammer. Fortunately, he got a direct hit and resummoned the hammer in hands. He walked around the snake monster's body, thinking this one was faster than he imagined. Then out of nowhere, the remaining body of the snake attacked him, and he barely blocked it with his divine tool in the form of a bar. Afterwards, he struck the snake body with the rod and activated the fix skill right away. Now, the snake couldn't move, and this should ease up the process of defeating it. Luckily for him, Mischa had warned him about this beforehand, otherwise he would have been done for. The snake monster was dangerous even without its head. She checked to see if he's okay, and he asked her if she was fine. She confirmed she was and pointed out that the head of the snake was regenerating. They crushed the snake head again, which finally killed the monster completely. Mischa can't believe they really did it, and to think they managed to do so while keeping the whole body of the snake intact except for heads was just amazing. He figured if the snake didn't go even after all that, they would have had to chop it into pieces until it won't regenerate. Mischa jumped in excitement, since the magic stones and gall bladders of venom snakes sell for a high price. Sojiro didn't think she was that careful about keeping the snake's body intact for that reason, and she commented it was a shortcut way for them to have materials to trade later. She warned him, though, that there would be tougher monsters ahead. He braced himself and followed her lead, while fighting different sorts of monsters together in day, then setting up camp in the night. As for sleeping, he knew the best way to sleep in the middle of a forest was to set up a hammock. He brought one packed in a bag in case, since it was easy to roll and doesn't take up much space. Its main benefit was it keeps the body lifted above the ground, maintaining their temperature. And if he applies insect repellent to the rope, it protects him from any insects coming on him. He was grateful to Musubai for weaving this hammock, and Mischa asked him if she could grill the meat today. For dinner, they had grilled snake and herb soup, and surprisingly he found the snake meat tasty, despite it having a bit of a peculiar smell. While eating, Mischa told him he could become a top-tier adventurer, since he was able to walk through the forest like it was a stroll in the park. He claimed it's only because of the goddess blessing, and besides, being an adventurer doesn't suit him. They went to sleep afterwards, with Musubai keeping a watch over them. On the morning of the third day, Mischa told him they would arrive at a road soon, and from there, it takes up less than an hour to the town. He noticed the forest area around them now feels different, and she was intrigued to see what he noticed. She pointed out this was a normal forest, but the magic density was still a bit higher than normal due to the divine tree forest nearby. So, the monsters around here also give a hard time to other adventurers. And every time humans need to clear the forests, they would recruit soldiers with high skills to subjugate monsters. Now this was more of a fantasy-like thing, and she also added that small monsters sometimes come out of the forest and attack fields and livestock. He figured as much, while she mentioned those monsters were tough for normal adventurers, so they fight in groups. As for magic stones, only big or even tougher monsters drop them, and even if they did, it would be hard to make profits, given how many soldiers are hired for one subjugation. Sojiro was kind of feeling pity for them while feeling weird for himself. They continued to walk further and eventually arrived on the road. She pointed out ahead, as the human town was visible from here and its name was Brownwalls. After they reached the town's gates, Mischa greeted the guards casually and waved at them with a smile. The guards recognized it was the elf lady and mentioned it's been long since she came last time. And it's the first time she brought a human along. She just claimed things happened and they ended up together. The guard knows it's not necessary to check if this guy's with her, but since it was the process, he checked Sojiro and asked for the tool. Mischa paid for him, after which they passed through the entrance, and Sojiro saw the guard having a smirk on his face while looking at him. He wondered what that face was just now. Either way, they were now in Brownwalls, a human town that relied on materials from divine forest. To Sojiro, it looked like a peaceful place, and Mischa told him she had been coming to this town for 20 years now, so she was practically treated like a local. He understood now why she got waved through at the gate, and on top of that, she mentioned having once done a favor for the Lord here a while back. And as for the gatekeeper, she has known him since the time he was a kid, and when he saw her for the first time, he pointed at her and yelled outside. He figured the guards were behaving nicely now since they were grown up, and when she asked what he meant by that, he couldn't exactly tell her that a beautiful woman who looks younger than the guy would always make them feel shy. And it also explained the smirk back then, as if the guy was thinking that Sojiro was another victim of elf charm. Next, they headed to the trading company, and right at the gate, they heard a guy shouting at some greedy merchant and running out of the place in a foul mood. He then saw our guy and asked what business he has here. Sojiro was nervous, then Mischa asked the guy if he was fighting again. He was shocked to see there was a man with Mischa, in which case he just wished good luck to the guy and ran away. At the same time, someone came out of the trading guild, cursing that lousy painter, referring to the dark-haired guy earlier. This time it seemed to be some old-aged merchant with a cap and glasses on him. He recognized Mischa from one look and thought she was early this time. She stated the circumstances changed, and she needed some supplies for now. The guy figured if that's so, then he noticed the guy she brought with him and in shock covered his whole face, because the elf lady had never brought anyone else with her in the last 20 years. He was pleased to meet our guy, and introduced himself as Dolero, the head of this trading company. Saojiro also introduced himself, right after which, Dolero questioned him what exactly his relationship was with Mischa. He offered some discount if he answered honestly. Mischa called out Dolero, urging him to get back from Saojiro. Dolero asked them to come in and have a seat before they proceed to talk business. She showed him all the goods they brought this time, and thanks to Mischa, the deal seemed to have gone smoothly. Moreover, Saojiro got cooking utensils and lots of seasonings as well, like saffron, pepper, garlic, and more. Then the black-haired guy from earlier approached him and asked if he's done shopping. Saojiro recalled it was the painter Fro. Earlier, and the guy introduced himself as Sedek. He asked him how the deal went. Saojiro replied it went nicely without any issues. Sedek questioned if Saojiro happens to live in the Divine Tree Forest. Saojiro asked if there was a problem with it because he didn't know if he was allowed or not to stay there. Sedek assured him there were no problems, except for the part that no one could touch that forest due to its difficulty, and even the lordship rights could not be claimed on land where their power does not reach. Saojiro was glad to hear that, but Sedek was curious how Saojiro lived there. Because even cutting a thin tree took hours of swinging, and the monsters make it all the more difficult to step foot there in the first place. Saojiro replied he could just cut the trees normally, he managed just fine. Sedek was glad to hear that and mentioned that in that forest, the trees were beyond top-tier lumbers. Saojiro didn't know how different they were, and from his words, Sedek figured Saojiro hadn't tried selling charcoal yet. Saojiro replied that so far he sold magic stones and monster materials, which piqued Sedek's interest, and he thought Saojiro seems like a strong adventurer. Although he told him to be careful, because recently the most dangerous mage in the country has arrived here, and even the guild was in an uproar recently. Because people passing here usually come here aiming for Divine Tree Forest, and it was the first time that such a big shot as that mage came by. He advised Saojiro to seek help from the Adventurers Guild if he finds himself in trouble. And lastly, he kind of wanted to know what Saojiro wanted to do in the forest. Saojiro remained firm and replied he doesn't want anything in particular, just live by eating delicious food and relaxing out there. Sedek liked the answer, and at the same time Mischa was done with negotiations and came back. Sedek disappeared and Saojiro tried looking around for him. Mischa asked him what happened. He replied to have just met a kind person, that's all. Meanwhile, inside the trading guild, Dolero was sitting with a serious expression on his face as he muttered that the elf lady had been becoming more detached from reality already, and now she brought a man like that with her. Sedek entered his room and asked if Dolero needed some advice or something. Dolero reminded Sedek not to barge in like this. He would come to Sedek himself, since it would set a bad example if a lord were to come here so casually without regard for his position. Turns out Sedek was actually Viscount of the Brownwalls town, and he doesn't think there's any value in maintaining meaningless dignity than taking meaningful actions. And he just thought it would be interesting, so he came anyway. Now when he asked what really happened, Dolero showed him the items he received from the elf lady and her companion, which were really high-quality magic stones of huge size, along with the gallbladder of a giant venom snake. Dolero thought he could not just sell top-tier items like these so easily, and moreover, the gallbladder was said to be a cure for all poisons in the world. Normally, the subjugation for a beast like that would have taken more than dozens of nights, so if Dolero didn't set a price matching that value, then it would not be worth it. Even a part of these materials was really costly. Sedek figured that unless it's a noble, no one else could buy these materials, and even for Dolero, it doesn't look like he could have bought these even after selling his entire warehouse. Dolero yelled at him for not being serious, and said for now, he has given them whatever they needed, but even after handing over many luxurious goods, the value still doesn't balance out. And that guy told him to keep the difference to himself for now, since he would be relying on this town more in future. Dolero can't believe there's someone he's indebted to now, that too worth more than his life at that. Sedek was amazed by Saojiro's actions, suggesting he has wisdom in commerce. Dolero also paid them some in cash, but they told him to just keep that money deposited here since it would be baggage on their way back anyway. So Dolero gave them a deed. Sedek can't help but laugh to see Dolero was made to take on a debt. Sedek nodded that was right, and to think he made the promise to an elf who was known to keep promises for 100 years literally. Sedek thought Saojiro must be quite a character, to be in an equal relationship with a high elf, and he also managed to make Dolero indebted to him on their first meeting. He had a hunch things might change from now on, and Dolero thought so as well, because the elf lady usually comes once every 1 or 2 years. But now she came early and even sold more than usual amount of goods. Which means that guy might be helping her clearing the Divine Tree Forest. Sedek can't really know for sure, but he was certain Saojiro was at least stronger than Sedek to be able to bring magic stones of this quality. And by slight chance, he might even be more powerful than an entire army. He might not look it, but he seemed to have more to him than just charming looks. And besides, he was told by Saojiro that he cuts trees in the Divine Tree Forest normally every day. Earlier he thought it might have been a joke, but after seeing the current situation, it was more inclined to be true. Dolero thought so, and he didn't expect to be terrified twice in such a short time at his age. Because first that dangerous mage showed up in town, rumored to have power enough to drown a whole ship. Fortunately, she went straight to the forest without causing any trouble. The name of that mage was known to be Ayano of the Black Sea, and it was unknown what she intended to do in the Divine Tree Forest. Sedek lost his chance to ask her that, and as a lord, he feels like a small bone stuck in his throat from these incidents. Dolero figures either way he can't die in peace for a while, but Sedek was ready to make him work even as an undead. Meanwhile, Mischa told him she would proceed according to the plan and gather some rock salt and more stuff before heading back to home. And as for Saojiro, he would be heading back to base first with Musubai. They both wash each other off, wishing each other to be careful, and on the way back, Saojiro has a place he wanted to stop by first. But little did he know, the dangerous mage Ayano seemed to have already been wandering into the forest and had stumbled on the shelter made by Saojiro on his first day. Saojiro recalled that the items fixed in a spot by his skill would remain exactly like that forever, unless he released the power, so he should go back to the shelter he first made and release it. He needs to be responsible with this overwhelming power, because with great power comes great responsibility. Meanwhile, Mischa was on her own adventure, hoping to finish her work soon and get back to house so she could eat Saojiro's warm food. 2 days later, Saojiro arrived at the shelter and this place feels nostalgic to him somehow, since he began his new life here. Now he was about to dismantle the shelter when he noticed something was odd, as the inside of the shelter was strangely dark. Musubai suddenly pulled him back and he wondered what happened. He was starting to think Musubai was afraid of that darkness inside the shelter. Right then, he sensed a presence behind him and summoned a hammer right away. He saw a bear monster which was kinda huge in size and Saojiro was aware it was an aggressive monster. The bear charged at him and he remained firm at his place, ready to fight back. But when the bear was really close to him, suddenly someone cast dark magic, shadow manipulation, and strange octopus-like hands made of dark magic emerged from the shadows. They restrained the bear's movements and Saojiro wondered what was happening right now. He looked back in the shelter and found out the caster of that magic was a girl who was resting inside the shelter. She introduced herself with an evil smirk, but Saojiro didn't pay attention and just smashed the bear with his hammer. The girl was left dumbfounded by the mighty hammer, while Saojiro was kind of feeling bad for ignoring the girl, but dealing with the bear first was necessary. But some of the bear spoils ended up landing on her head, which made him think she must be pissed off right now. Saojiro then noticed the bear's head with something stuck in its teeth. It seemed to be the undergarment of that lady there, and when he turned to look at the girl, she wasn't visible anymore. He could swear he saw someone, then the girl's sound came from inside the dark shelter, saying sorry. Musubai then shot a sticky thread inside the tent and pulled out the girl, revealing she had been hiding in there all along. The girl screamed in fear and didn't notice when she got pulled out that easily. She cried out loud, whereas Saojiro noticed she was wearing a sailor uniform which happened to look similar to a Japanese student. He was wondering why she was here, and the only thing he could be certain about her right now was that she was surely the owner of that undergarment in bear's fangs. The poor girl was terrified now, and Saojiro apologized to her for Musubai's rudeness and the unfortunate incident. He introduced himself as Saojiro and asked her for her name. But she was too scared and could barely mutter any words. Saojiro felt guilty for scaring her too much. After a while, she managed to speak up and introduced herself as Chigusa Ayano. Saojiro formally apologized to Ayano again, but she replied it was her fault for being arrogant there, and she also ended up showing something unsightly to him. She was so embarrassed she wanted to die, hang herself, or throw herself to monsters or in front of a train. He requested her not to think of ways to die now, and more importantly, when she mentioned the train, he wanted to ask if she was also another worlder. She confirmed his doubt and said she was a Japanese high school student, so she was fine with him speaking casually with her and not using honorifics. Saojiro was feeling hard to talk to her, given how weak she was, then she mustered up courage and suddenly shouted to call her Ayano. He knows she stumbled there and let out a laugh which scared her again, and he had one more thing to apologize for. He guaranteed not to do anything so she could calm down. She asked if he meant that, to which he replied with a yes, addressing that he was a Japanese guy as well. She was happy to meet another Japanese guy, and Saojiro was curious if there were more of them out here in this world. Yano asked if he was an isekai beginner since his words hint at that, while Yano claimed she had been in this world for 4 years now. She told him that other worlders are the rarest of the rare in this world, and the fact she spent 4 years here was shocking to our guy. He asked if she was wearing a uniform cosplay. To be wearing it despite spending so much time here, she should have passed school already. But she doesn't remember graduating, and moreover, the aging process slowed down in this world, so she was both body and soul still a high schooler. And just so he knows, she was a cheat-level mage in this world, and all famous as an A-rank adventurer. Saojiro asked why was a girl like that resting in the shelter he made. She was amazed he was the one who built this damn sturdy shelter. She added since this was the divine tree forest, she came here with confidence, but it turned out to be filled with more monsters than she imagined. And her dark magic was suitable for surprise attacks, which won't work if there were too many monsters to fight. Basically, she was scared for her life down here. She recalled a lot has happened in the last 3 years she spent here, like being reincarnated into this world, and despite being a gloomy introvert with peak social anxiety, she got dragged into politics and all with no social skills or knowledge either. He said sorry for what she went through, and she added that in the end, she ran from monsters and ended up finding this invincible tent here and holed herself up. And when she went out to wash her undergarments, she ended up being attacked by more monsters and ran back here. Saojiro learned her story now, then she pointed out his weapon seemed a bit too strong, because even her sturdy octopus legs were wiped out along with the bear back then. He told her it's not a weapon but a divine tool, and even this tent was made with it. She was thankful to this divine tool, since she survived because of it, and even her dark magic of max level couldn't help her much in this forest. She loved this shelter so much she didn't want to leave it and make it her second home. But when Saojiro told her he came here to dismantle it, she was terrified and began crying that she won't let her home be destroyed. He asked her if she had made her own tent when she entered this forest. She replied that it was destroyed by monsters in 2 days, so she wanted him to leave this tent like that. Saojiro was curious why she didn't leave for home if she was in a bind, and the reason was simple: she got lost. She also ran out of food, and when she tried foraging, she got a stomach ache. She even felt like she was going to die soon. Saojiro was feeling really bad for this girl because she had almost zero survival skills. And if she was at the point of stomach ache from hunger, she might also die of dehydration soon. So even if he gave her this shelter, he still couldn't leave her alone in this situation. Thus, he asked her if she would like to come to his campsite. Ayano didn't take even a second to reply with a yes, after which Saojiro dismantled the shelter and had another task now to take this helpless girl back to his camp. On the way, he asked her if the shadow manipulation she used was dark magic, to which she replied it was kind of a technique, which was popular in this world by another name, summoning. She mentioned dark magic could do lots of other things too, and now that he got a proper look at her, he found it strange that even an A-rank mage was in danger in this forest. He also figured Sedek must have been talking about her, when referring to her as the most dangerous mage in the country. But right now, it doesn't seem to be the case since she was way too helpless for the strongest mage, and in the end, she ended up being carried by Musubai. Later, he arrived at the base and Mac welcomed him. He also thanked Yukutama for sitting with Mac and protecting the base. Yukutama seemed rough on the surface, but he was also a cute beast, and he hugged Saojiro to show his happiness. Yano was dying to touch those fluffy creatures, and Saojiro introduced her to Mac and Yukutama, telling them she would be staying here for a while. Mac went to hug her, but she didn't have energy to catch him and got taken down. After that, when she saw the buildings in which Saojiro lived, she could not believe a house could exist in the middle of this deadly, unexplored region. He told her she doesn't need to be that surprised, but she has heard people say that only gods could push back the monsters and trees to clear this forest. Saojiro noticed she seemed to know a lot about this world. She got shy and said not that much. He asked her to have a seat, but she never expected this place to have proper civilized diner seating. She thought he was really living out here and even making himself comfortable. He offered to make some tea for her. She was curious where that came from. Saojiro stated he has a friend who taught him how to find ingredients for homemade tea. He told her if she needed to, she could feel free to use the toilet there. It's in Western style. She could not ask for more and unfortunately was dying for some comfort in this world. Saojiro found it funny how she reacts to everything and told her that she doesn't have paper yet. She claimed to have some on her and used some magic spell to bring out paper that was stored in her shadow. She mentioned that her shadows could store anything she wants, which he found amazing. But she thought it was useless because she had some expensive jewels inside at once. Then some bastards used appraisal magic on her and accused her of stealing them from their place. She ended up having to fight the local lord due to that turmoil, and even at the guild she had to submit an application for every amount of food she had. Saojiro felt even more bad for her, considering she had suffered enough till now. Although he kinda found it impressive how regulated the system was. Thus, she was never able to enjoy her powers and had to suffer instead because she had them. Saojiro realizes those in power in this world must be pretty nasty, as they use such a good system to exploit people for real good instead. She cried more about how she doesn't have connections to a guild or anything. She was never taught about them either. She wasn't free from troubles even after her chess skills, which means she was too innocent for this world. He wanted to lift up her mood, so he changed the topic and mentioned that an elf lives here as well, and she will be back in about 3 days. And since she's a woman, Ayano doesn't have to be on guard and Mischa could guide her back to civilization. But Ayano screamed she did not want to go back to that hell, and she hated this world. There, she would again have to worry about being pursued or dive into dungeons to earn money while being treated like a nuisance by the guild. Saojiro recalls being in a similar boat and knows how she must be feeling. In his past life, he was sick of working a job with no future, and when he was a fresh graduate who didn't know anything, he just believed everything he was told and kept working himself to the bone. But his efforts were never rewarded, and he just kept being treated unfairly. So he took the plunge and changed jobs, only to find himself stuck in a different way. Eventually, he reached a point where he didn't know if he could trust his boss or coworkers. He also hated society and hated being part of it, just like this poor girl, who was thrown into all this at an even younger age than him. And lastly, she complained she could not even taste her food anymore. It was just painful to eat at this point. This moved Saojiro, and he told her she could stay here as well. He wanted to get her out of that tasteless life, and promised to build a house for her as well. She asked if it was really okay. He confirmed it was indeed okay, but she would have to help them with whatever she could instead. She asked if it means being a footrest or a chair for him or something. He denied it, but she thought her only value was these skins and bones, and she was too short as well. He requested her to stop trying to be a furniture and made it clear to her that her magic was wonderful. And he saw it when she stopped the brown bear and hid herself in the shelter completely. Those were things that he could not do himself or store things like storing items inside the shadows. So she was really amazing, but when being told that straight up, she could not hide her smile while claiming with words it wasn't really a big deal. Saojiro noticed she was a total pushover and told her he can't use magic at all. So he was sure she would be a lot more helpful to him. And if she was okay, he would like her to stay here as long as she wanted. Being told that made her really happy, so much that tears welled up in her eyes as she promised to do her best. After that, he made tea for her, while she figured she could stay cooped up in the darkness without being scorched to death by enemies here. He told her to first wait for another resident, the elf, and learn some stuff from her. Yano asked if she was a dark elf or something. He forgot to mention she was actually a high elf. Yano could feel the holy light coming from him, as Saojiro seemed just too bright in every way. Next up, he was going to make dinner and asked her if she wanted to help. She wanted to help since he was offering to cook a meal for someone like her. Saojiro was also excited to use the new pot he got from town, while Yano looked around some herbs and garden. He cooked up some fishes caught from the river and added some herbs along with salt in the pot. It was a camp dish he learned, which would bring out the flavor of fish. Yano was looking carefully as the food was cooking, and it was her first time looking at actual food in 4 years. Saojiro felt like there was much more to her story and asked to tell him more while they ate. Once the delicious fish meal was prepared, Yano enjoyed the meal with her whole heart. Heck, she could eat hundreds of servings if possible after being starved for taste for so long. When she finished the first serving, she was shy to ask for seconds. He assured her it's fine and served seconds. Yano was deeply moved, as she began to slow down while eating, enjoying the taste of the meal slowly and etching it into her memories over the suffering. Saojiro was really happy for her, and since it's been late, he made a temporary makeshift tent for her today. He crafted it real quick with what came to his mind and used Musubai's produced cloth to cover it. He was sorry he couldn't manage the bed for now, but she was totally fine with it, because it was even more amazing than the shelter she loved back then. He told her to sleep comfortably. She must always remember that cold comes from below and heat comes from above, so she has to sleep on a mat of a board to act as insulation. Honestly, he wondered how she managed until now. Yano replied she just summoned a black mist with dark magic and curled up in a ball, wrapped herself in a blanket and slept. Saojiro could only call that as youthful recklessness, but it's nice she pushed through it. Now he told her she should sleep, assuring that monsters don't come in this area. He wished her good night and was leaving with Mac for his home, but she called him out as she had something to say. She wanted to truly thank him for everything from the tent to food from the bottom of her heart. He was also thankful to her for teaching him about this world, but then the color of her face started fading away. She started trembling like a scared mouse and asked if she should trouble him for one thing. He didn't mind, but the thing was, she wanted to ask what his name was again. She apologized if it might have come out as rude, but she only wanted to make sure not to call him by the wrong name. He told her to call him Saojiro, and she looked forward to living with him. Yano was really pushing herself a lot right now since she hasn't talked this much in a really long time. It was so rare her throat gave out because it wasn't used to it. He thought she was quite the character and went to get some water for her. Later, she slept soundly inside her tent, and one more resident was added to Saojiro's camp. Next morning, when the sun started rising at dawn, Saojiro was woken up by Mac as usual, and he reflexively wished good morning to Mischa. Then he realized she hadn't returned yet, and wishing her first thing in the morning had become so normal he was used to it. Without her here, he was kind of feeling a little lonely. He decided to just go and wash his face, then do some stretching. Then suddenly, he heard a scream coming from Ayano's tent. She apologized for sleeping, even though she was just a lackey. Turns out she had been talking in her sleep, and when she came out, Saojiro wished her good morning. She suddenly opened her eyes wide, as if she was reborn again, and asked him if he really wished her good morning. She apologized if she was being weird, but it's just she hadn't been greeted by anyone in a long time. She noticed he was doing morning stretching, which she learned in school. He asked her if she wanted to join, and she agreed to do it, although she was a little bit troubled following the stretching exercises with Saojiro. Later, he asked her if she wanted to take a dip in the water next. She did, and he asked if she had any other clothes besides that uniform. Yano mentioned Musubai tailored the uniform for her, so it was fine, but she had something in mind if she could ask. She wanted to have some undergarments made by Musubai if possible, and that request reminded Saojiro she wasn't wearing anything down there. He apologized for not noticing, but she claimed to be fine, saying it felt kinda liberating. He wished she wouldn't say things like that so casually, after which he took her to the river and gave her some soap. He told her which spot would be fine to bathe. It was marked by the stones that also slow the river current there. She took off her clothes and slowly walked to the bath, wondering if this was really okay. She was really embarrassed being naked, but was somehow pulling through, thinking that adventurers do this all the time. Saojiro was keeping a watch from afar, hoping she would take a good bath since she might not have been able to in the forest until now. And moreover, she was kinda smelly till now, so that was also the reason she should bathe to make a better impression on Mischa later. Yano was feeling a sense of freedom while bathing without being on guard for a long time. Although after bathing, she realized how much she was smelling and apologized for spreading her stench everywhere. Saojiro told her it's fine, and he didn't offer a bath yesterday since she didn't seem to have energy for it. He then combed her hair, checking if there were lice on her. But he didn't want to let her know that, so he said that he was forced into bathing himself by the elf too, so he was in the same boat at Yano at the start. But inside, he wasn't that sure about what he just said. She told him he didn't smell bad, so he was better than her right now. He thanked her for the compliment and reminded her they should not let their guard down too much and get back to work more on their base. She stated that this divine tree forest was the most dangerous place in the world, where death was around every corner, but it was also really beautiful. Next, he decided to clear the land and cut timber for the cabin today, so the new resident Ayano could live there. Then she called him and said she would help as well. He told her it would be hard labor work, was she sure about that? Ayano still wanted to help and claimed that dark magic was mainly good at these sorts of works. She used some dark magic to lift up the table, and some invisible force lifted it for real. She could also make objects weightless, which might be helpful for him. He agreed it was indeed super helpful, in which case she decided her role in his to help him. While he cut the wood, she handled the heavy lifting with dark magic. Saojiro had then placed them on the stands so he could uniformly strip the bark off them, then cut them into planks and store them in Ayano's shadows. Earlier, Saojiro always had it easy with processing and crafting, but it was transporting and storing that took a long time. But now with Ayano here, she reduced the workload significantly with dark magic, and he was beginning to enjoy working with her at this speed. She was also glad to be of help, and after a bit he figured they should get started on the shed now. She agreed to him, although she looked a bit tired, so he decided to take a break. Sojiro realized he might have gotten carried away, forgetting that Ayano's stamina wasn't that high. Working with her was like working in zero gravity, and it did take up some of her energy to move things around, which made it efficient but not completely convenient. And while holding weightless objects doesn't require strength, pushing them around does. After the break, he asked her to grab that timber for her, and she tried her best to carry it with dark magic. Sojiro was starting to see her limitations, so he told her she was really working hard. But he asked her out of curiosity which method was easier for her, to use shadow manipulation or make objects weightless. She could choose whichever method took less burden on her, leaving her shocked when she realized she was being dumb from start. She used shadow manipulation to lift other timber, and the work became even more efficient now. Sojiro designed the framing, then walls, roof, outer wall, inner wall, and during all that he had to make adjustments here and there. Thanks to Ayano, who manipulated lumbar with just a flick of her finger, the work progressed very quickly, and not long after, the shed was completed before they knew it. She thought it was as if he used magic, but he reminded her she was the only magic user here. He told her she did good work today, and her dark magic was really incredible, as if he was working with heavy machinery. He noticed she had been sitting the whole time. Wasn't her back tired yet? She replied it was fine, and more importantly, she can't help but adore her own shed. A place for her to belong was finally completed. Sojiro thanked her for working hard. She asked confusedly if she did a good job. He agreed she did, and if she had not been here, they never could have built such a fine shack. Her eyes widened in awe, and she was truly overjoyed by being praised and appreciated. He asked her how was her stomach doing now. She replied being completely fine, in which case Sojiro decided to have a little heavy dinner today, bare hot pot. While the meal was cooking in a pot, he recalled that he had not been going hunting lately. So this meat was from the bear he killed when he met Ayano, and she had saved up some parts of the meat in her shadow. They enjoyed their meals, after which they had some tea to drink, and Sojiro recalled Mischa should be coming back tomorrow. He needed to explain to her about Ayano, and knowing her, she would probably accept Ayano anyway. At least that was how he thought things would go, but he never imagined that the next day, he would witness Mischa aiming daggers at Ayano. Apparently, Ayano was near the river doing some fishing for meals later, and she was able to get it done with ease through shadow manipulation. Although, even though she got the fish out of water, Ayano was kinda reluctant in holding it directly with her hands. She just hovered it with gravity magic, and Sojiro asked if she was not going to catch it with hands. She absolutely denied holding something like this, in which case he asked her why she was trying to catch them if she didn't like it. She replied it was because Sojiro handled fishing right after his bath the day before, so today, she wanted to help him and be useful as well. Sojiro can't just say no when she is trying to push herself like that and overcome her fears. She wasn't sure what to do now, asking him if they would grill it next. She ended up smashing the fish in the fire, unsure if that's how it was done. He told her to wait and proposed there's a better way to do it. First, she needs to gut the fish. Yano thought about it and tried using octopus legs to gut the fish, but it looked really gross. At the same time, someone shouted at Yano to stop, and something was thrown forcefully on her side. She wondered what was that just now, then the next moment she heard the same voice, telling her to stop using that magic of hers. Sojiro recognized the voice and saw that Mischa had returned. But she did not seem to be happy and on her guard. She asked Sojiro if he was still in his right mind, or was he influenced by dark magic. She rained down dozens of questions, and Sojiro tried to calm her down, assuring her everything's fine and it's just a misunderstanding. But when Mischa saw the new girl hiding behind him, Mischa felt bad to see he befriended a dark magic user while she was gone. Sojiro nodded and they did become friends, but she was not dangerous, and Mischa could see for herself he was fine. Mischa carefully lowered her weapons and walked up to him, sniffing to check if he was really fine. She confirmed Sojiro was normal, in which case she apologized for misunderstanding. At the same time, Ayano had to catch the falling fish with her hands, and was creeped out by a slimy feeling. Sojiro figured she would be fine after a bit, while Mischa observed Ayano and came to think she was not like other dark magic users. Sojiro had no idea how dark magic users were generally seen, to which Mischa replied for one to be able to use dark magic, they need to have faith in non-humans or curse people in chaos. Only they could accumulate the darkness required to use dark magic. Sojiro thought he might have an idea of what Ayano might have faith in. It was those weekly shonen mangas, since they were non-human objects and there was a wide variety of them. If he says so, Mischa believed him, and either way he welcomed her back home. She was also glad to be back, then there was this unexplainable silence between them for a moment. Both of them felt strange for some reason since they were meeting after a while. Ayano, on the other hand, just wanted to know what she should do with that fish. After that, Sojiro told her the story of how he met Ayano and who she was, and learned that she was from the same place as him. She mentioned it was already rare to have a guest from another world, and now there were two of them right in front of her eyes at the same time. It was extremely rare, and she found Ayano to be cute and lovely in her clothes. Ayano was having a bit of trouble standing in the bright light of cheerful aura Mischa was giving off, and that's how they came to know each other. Then he showed her the shack where Ayano would be living, and Mischa noticed it was like an upgraded version of what she and Sojiro have for their homes. He kinda explained the changes he made, including the door, but they don't really get everything he said. Mischa noticed something and asked them why both of them took their shoes off, and they replied to have done it out of habit. Mischa didn't know there was some tradition like that, and she went to take off her shoes as well. He told her it's fine, but she did not want to be left out. Sojiro told her that's not the case, and he has yet to make more changes to their places. Until then, it would be bad to come in without shoes actually. Yano remarked he was so particular, and he explained a bit about the entrance he would make in future. She got the gist of it, and then asked about how they built the roof so high. Yano explained it was done thanks to her shadow manipulation. Sojiro noticed both of them seemed to be getting along just fine, and to Ayano, this shed might be the fruit of her labor. He was kinda worried he might have made her work a bit too much, but she seemed to be happy in doing so since she was creating things for herself and doing what she wanted. Next, Sojiro was pouring something out of a pot, and Mischa asked him what he was doing. He claimed to have gotten plenty of oil from Ayano, and she collected it from far away. He avoided buying oil when he was in the town because it would have been hard to carry. But now since he had plenty of it, he figured he would make his local cuisine from Japan. Mischa asked if he waited for her to come home before making it. He agreed it was obvious since he didn't want to leave her out. Mischa liked him waiting and it made her really happy. She was looking forward to what he would make. She asked Ayano why she had so much oil, since she didn't seem to know how to cook. Ayano replied that she simply used to eat fish by dipping it in oil and frying over fire. It was a quick and easy method for cooking a dish, and Mischa wanted to see it being done if Sojiro was doing the same. He was going to do something similar and make a meal inside this pot. He was making potato starch first in the pot, then turned it into powder and wrapped it in a cloth. Then squeezed it repeatedly inside a container filled with water. The water became cloud, and the cloudiness was the plant's starch. He was careful not to lose the powder and poured out only the dirty water. He repeated this process, then denied the white powder left behind, and thus the potato starch was ready. Mischa asked him how he was gonna use it. He then brought out some meat he had been marinating till now. He soaked it in a brine made of water, salt, and sugar, which made it soft and juicy. Next, he coated the meat in potato starch and deep-fried it. Since Ayano was from his world, she got the idea of what final dish he was going to make already, and he ended up making the fried meat. Mischa tried it and found it really tasty, and so did Ayano, who hadn't tasted fried chicken in so many years. Sojiro also felt pleased by the crunchy texture of the meat, which just bursts in the mouth. He could hide his expression, literally saying it was the best he had so far. Mischa also helped herself as much as she liked and thanked Ayano for helping. Ayano was too busy enjoying the taste similar to fried chicken. Right then, Sojiro got an idea and he turned the divine tool into a knife. He went over to the back and crafted something real quick. Then he brought something for Ayano. She saw it was fried meat on a stick. It immediately gave her nostalgia, and she called him a god for blessing her so much. Mischa was curious about trying it as well, thinking it must increase the taste. It was a little hard for him to explain it to her, while Ayano was just lost in eating. So far it's been great, and Sojiro wasn't sure earlier how things would go. But now he was glad they were getting along pretty well. Before Mischa returned, Ayano seemed to hesitate putting her head in the river, so he made a bucket for her, and now Mischa and Ayano were bathing using the same bucket. To make it, Sojiro cut the board into 10 pieces, then joined them at the angle of 42 degrees, so they could be connected properly enough to not leak. Then he cut some trapezoids to make the bottom. He was meticulous while working on it, since he didn't want an odd-shaped bucket. Then he shaved them with a plane to get a rough curve and fit the pieces together to fine-tune the angles. That's how it was supposed to go, but thanks to craft gear, it was done in just one try. He then secured the wood pieces tightly with rope and used fix on them. Not long after, he just had smooth on the edges, insides, and the bottom, and finished it off with sandpaper. The bucket was ready, and he tested out for any possible leaks. Sojiro kinda likes being creative when there are more people now, and crafting something which was needed and could be put to immediate use was a good feeling. He wished to keep making more tools like this, while Yano was in the middle of bathing and wondered if the cloth was too thin. Mischa confirmed it was, and the silk made by spirit moss was just the best. It also feels good on the skin. Ayano then saw a fish and caught it with shadow manipulation. Mischa told her not to fool around while bathing or the monsters would come. Ayano was kinda apologetic, as she began to drown out of nowhere. Mischa quickly gave a heads up that Ayano was attacked by something, after which they had to fight and save her right away. Ayano was saved thanks to quick decision-making, and Mischa mentioned Ayano was attacked by a subspecies of evil slime, which might have been drawn here by dark magic. Saojiro didn't know there was a translucent slime, which could drag its prey down in clear water, and if they didn't know it, one would be dead before they could even make a splash. Mischa lectured them not to be careless next time, and they should try to sense monsters by careful observation skills. Saojiro noticed something shining on the ground, and when he picked it up wondering what it looked similar to a glass bead. Mischa told him it was evil slime cells, which were separated from the code and clumped together and become spherical. They were smooth to touch, so some people buy them just for the feel. And even weak slimes tend to leave these things behind, and it was a beginner adventurer's way to make money. Saojiro figured since the slimes in these forests were strong, their cores would be more worthy as well. She agreed that was the case, and when one slime consumes another, their cores merge and form a bigger part. They were really hard to deal with in the swarm, and if they took them down one by one, then slimes would just merge and form a bigger body with multiple cores to fight back. Which means Saojiro would have to crush all the cores quickly at once, which sounded like a pain. Then Ayano smashed a cell with a rock. She was pissed off to think she was going to be done in by a slime just because her guard was down. Saojiro noticed the cells just split apart upon being crushed, and he liked how this world had such interesting materials. Mischa told Ayano to remember not to use dark magic again while bathing. She agreed to it. Next, they went back to the home and saw Yukutama had a new partner with him. Ayano remarked he also split into two like a slime, while Mischa knew it was a new spirit beast. She asked happily if it was here to say hello. Saojiro noticed she was happy, and indeed she was, since the more spirit beasts they have the better it would be. Although Saojiro doesn't think he could tell them apart which one was Yukutama and which was Katama, the new riddle. She figured they would sort that out later. Later, Mischa was alone when she put a ribbon on the new spirit beast. She was about to leave for hunting now, then Ayano remarked Mischa surely got many ribbons on her, which was kinda too girly of her. Mischa seemed to be feeling awkward upon hearing that, and claimed she couldn't help it, because she had only a ribbon to tie on Katama to make identifying them easy. Yano realized she might have made Mischa too self-conscious, and she kept speaking continuously trying to explain she just had them lying around. In the end, she gave up and admitted it might be a hobby that does not suit her. She hoped Ayano would keep this a secret from Saojiro, but it seems she was already gone. At the same time, she heard Saojiro trying to keep Mac quiet, and she slowly turned her head around. There he was, trying to quiet Mac to avoid being noticed by her. Apparently, he had been planning to come in to lighten up the mood earlier, but he ended up hearing everything including the last part. Mischa was all shy after that, then he called out her name and said the ribbon was actually a bit too cute. Moreover, he told her it's fine to like anything she wants. He mentioned that camping didn't really suit a corporate slave like him either, but he did because he loved it, and he also thought she looked cute the way she was. His words made her blush to the point even her cheeks and ears became red, then she smacked him and said he can't do that. She told him to be careful because he was a sacred one, so hitting on girls was forbidden for him. She just ran away after saying that, but Saojiro didn't think he was flirting with her. In the end, he was reminded that girls were difficult to understand. Meanwhile, Ayano was feeling embarrassed about almost being killed by a slime, then got trapped in anxiety by an elf afterwards. She ended up dumping things on Saojiro and ran away. Now, Ayano thought of bringing some green herbs as an apology, and she saw Saojiro was working on meals. He was thinking of what to add next to the dining area as well, like a barbecue, kitchen, a roof, and a wood deck to sit by the fire. He wished he had some concrete, and at this point, Ayano thought he was asking for too much. She then gave him herbs and apologized for leaving things all on him back there. He wasn't angry at all, and assured he won't kick her out like she was worried about. He then recalled that back in Japan, there was a concrete called tataki, which could be made with the materials they have right now. She asked if he could really make something like that. He replied he just red clay, gravel, and soaked like to do it. And the only thing they were missing was lime, and they could make it by burning shells. Even eggshells might work. Ayano offered to grab them from a bird's neck, but he doesn't know if they end up targeting a just laid egg or one which was about to hatch. She doesn't think it's a big deal, since they could just crack it open to check. Saojiro told her that if they end up coming across a half-matured egg, they don't even know how it could be used and just end up wasting it. She thought it would look disgusting and refused to eat another egg for the rest of her life. Saojiro was sorry to make her hate eggs, and it took a while to calm her down. For now, he figured the earthen floor could wait, and they would set it up to protect against rain and dim while keeping the open air feeling. Basically, he wanted an outdoor dining area, and Ayano thinks he was kinda particular about this stuff. He just felt presentation was important for enjoying their meals, and if they stopped caring, their food would start tasting like sand. Not only that, Ayano would also like it when it's done. Now that she thinks about it, she would enjoy her meals more if that was done and thought it was a good idea. But she has been meaning to ask him one thing. She asked him what that small house was for. Saojiro was thinking of making a shrine to house the divine statue. Since he had been building huts all over the place without any proper ceremonies and a proper center, he wanted to make something to enshrine it. But he ended up getting distracted and made the roof of this one halfway, then he kept adding more stuff and it looked like a house. He figured it would be a good practice for a house he would build one day. She didn't know he had plans for even more proper houses, then Mischa came and asked what they were doing. When she saw the tiny house, she found it really cute. Ayano told her it's a prototype and he would make the real thing soon. Mischa asked where her room would be, trying to look at it in the model, and Ayano pointed in the attic, which seemed good enough for her. Mac barked, as if to remind Mischa of something. She claimed to have bagged something big this time and would need their help, especially Ayano's, to carry it over to the river. Ayano went with her for the work, and Saojiro figured he should get started on the dinner. But right then someone called him master and welcomed him to her home. Saojiro asked who it was and noticed the sound came from the small house he built. He saw a small thing coming out of the house, and she had small wings which could only describe one thing, that she was a fairy. After the fairy appeared, she claimed this house for herself, and in exchange she promised to assist Saojiro. When others came back, Mischa was surprised to see a fairy here, while the fairy claimed she was a bit too extraordinary from others, so she ended up wandering around and found this spot. Mischa got that fairy had no idea how she reached here then, and Saojiro asked Mischa if this fairy was an acquaintance of hers. Mischa denied not at all, but he thought she was talking really informally for the first meeting. Mischa claimed talking to a fairy was a pain and told him to just ignore half of the things the fairy said. The good thing was the fairy was not a bad creature, and since she says she would help with handiwork, they might as well let her. Saojiro only got the part that the fairy wasn't evil, and he allowed the fairy to use that house. She thanked him, referring to him as master, then he asked her for her name. She replied it was Saneria, and at the same time Ayano returned from her work to ask where she should put the butchered meat. When Ayano saw the fairy, she was surprised, but when the fairy saw her, she sensed the presence of the dark magic and attacked Ayano right away without a warning. The fairy thought it was unexpected to think there would be a dark mage where she was, and as a fairy, she decided to eliminate evil. Saojiro stepped forward and told her to stop, assuring that Ayano was harmless and Saneria misunderstood her. He carried Ayano to the front to show she was totally harmless. Fairy asked Saojiro if he was really alright, trying to make sure he wasn't influenced by dark magic or having any nightmares recently. Saojiro replied he was fine, and Mischa guaranteed he was speaking the truth. Saneria was finding it rather intriguing, since dark mages were well known to be chaotic and evil. Saneria thought her master must be amazing, but more importantly, Saojiro asked Saneria to apologize to poor Ayano because she terrified him out of nowhere. The fairy obeyed her master and offered an apology. But while she looked closely at Ayano's crying face, Saneria trembled a bit, and Saojiro asked her if she was also terrified. Saneria refused to be scared, claiming she was a superior fairy who does not fear anything. But clearly she was afraid, and he could see it from her shaking. He asked can't they just get along with each other. Saneria promised to try. After some time, Ayano began hiding behind Saojiro, worried that she could be attacked by that fairy anytime. And so, though it was a bit chaotic, Saojiro's camp gained another resident, and this one seemed to love living a bit lavishly and didn't hesitate in making more requests. Even Saojiro thought she was the noisy type, and her demands would only increase with time. He told her they don't have many clothes to block out air and provide cushioning. She told him there were some trees in this forest, which could provide rubber, and he could come with Musubai's cloth to craft better clothing and cushioning. Saojiro learned something new, as Saneria seemed to know a lot about the divine tree forest. He kinda understood half of what she said and couldn't even recall it now. She told him that by actively utilizing her help, Saojiro could gain more resources. She noticed he didn't seem focused and asked if he was aroused or distracted by her beautiful body. He denied that's not the case, and the fairy asked him what he thought of her now, since she was being really helpful despite being so small. And if needed, she could go out and collect the rubber for him. She asked him for something sharp to do it, in which case he made a knife for her. She didn't have any trouble holding the knife and told him it was quite a fine piece of work. She then added that when making beds, he should also make one for himself. He wondered why she worried about him, but she was just trying to look out for his needs in case he needed bed sometime soon for great nights. Saojiro can't seem to understand how he ended up with this pervert fairy, and as she left, he told her to let him know when she needed to move sap later. She told him not to worry about that and suddenly began flying towards Ayano. Ayano was then lifted by the fairy without any trouble, and Saneria did so to show she was quite strong despite her small body. She then released Ayano from above, and Saojiro caught the scared girl. Saneria remarked it was a nice catch, but Ayano only got more scared of the fairy. She began to think fairies were savages. Saneria teased if the master seemed to be in need of a bed, he scolded her to stop joking about that and just leave. The next day, he was thinking of getting back to what he was doing before the fairy disturbed him. He rebuilt an altar for worshipping the goddess and put the statue he made of her in it. While he was working, Saneria was observing him from above while sitting on Musubai's head. Musubai sat down on his head and he thought she must be praising him. On the other hand, Saneria looked at the altar and suggested he add more color by placing some flower pots around it, and the fairy would decorate the rest with flowers from around. She told him to make sure they were small flower pots only, and after getting her request, he asked Musubai if she wanted to do something too. Musubai began weaving something with her threads and created a decorative stash. He decided to add it properly to the altar, and Saneria was kinda curious now, what does he pray to the goddess for? Saojiro replied that since she granted his wishes, he just wanted to thank her for everything. He made the wish when he was reincarnated, and it seemed to be going well. With the divine tool, he has peace of mind while working, and now he also has some pleasant neighbors who even help him out with things he can't do on his own. He already had more than enough, so he didn't want to pray for anything else and just be grateful to the goddess. But when it came to Saneria, she prayed for booze and meat repeatedly, and some fun as well. Saojiro yelled at her not to ask for selfish stuff from the goddess, but she figures he would grant her wishes anyway instead of the goddess. Saojiro asked how was that. Saneria stated he already granted the wish of that dark mage there, since it's clear all she wanted was delicious food and a place where she could feel safe. And Saojiro was already providing all of that to her. When she put it like that, he guessed she was right, and she proceeded to talk about Mischa, the elf girl with girly tastes. She was considered a nuisance by both humans and her own race, and yet the master accepted her. He asked her what she meant by that, to which Saneria replied that Mischa's wish was to make use of divine tree forest and the magic spirit beasts living within it. Saojiro recalls she did say that earlier when they met, but he doesn't think that wish could make her a nuisance to her own kind. Saneria explained this forest could only be restored by long-eared ones, which was the normal expectations of everyone in this world. And that elf girl wanted to make better use of this forest, while ensuring it would never be used for anything mean or selfish, which could cause a conflict among anyone, even if various nations were in the middle of wars. Saojiro realized she wished for this forest to remain peaceful even during the era of wars, and that's exactly why Saneria mentioned that Mischa was a nuisance for others, since she won't let anyone approach the forest with ill intent. She was trying to protect endangered species out here in the forest, which was why each and every powerful figure around the world rejected and ignored cooperating with her, and she knew it well her wish could not be achieved alone without support. Saojiro could understand there might even be people who would just pretend to be helping on the surface. The fairy knows that, and so does Mischa. Saojiro wondered how could they not allow anyone to use resources from forest for conflicts. Fairy replied there were many things in this forest to exploit, like the charcoal from the trees here could be used to melt even hardest metals out there, which was just a scratch of the value this forest had in the world's eyes. Saojiro figured these reasons alone could invite a lot of evildoers, and Saneria told him that in the middle of all this, Master was the only one who understands the elf girl. Saneria wanted to ask him once about what he intended to do with the forest. He thought about everything he learned and replied he doesn't have any great ambitions, so he hasn't thought about doing anything other than eating food and living his life peacefully. Thus, he won't let the forest be misused for anything and cherish both the forest and this wholesome life of his. He was having fun crafting things and living this self-sustaining life. He looked at his hands and came to realize that he felt a sense of kinship with Mischa's goals and wanted to support her. Fairy asked what he meant by that. Saojiro replied it's just he wanted to be nice and kind, so he would be treasured in return like he has been till now. He wanted to keep doing good things, so maybe he would remain in someone's memory for generations to come, and it would be great to have someone who would treasure the things that were important to him. He understands that feeling and thus keeps being with Mischa and root for her. He did not know Mischa was out here all alone in the depths of this forest, for an ideal that no one understands. He wonders how many years she has passed here with the same goal. Cineria told him he possessed a heart which was really rare in this world, but she wanted to remind him something important, that he hadn't finished making a flower pot yet. She wishes he could move his hands instead of mouth. Saojiro reminds her that he's doing things because he wants to and does not like being forced. After that, he finished flower pots, and Cineria added flowers, finishing the display in front of the temple. Out of the blue, Cineria gave her word to him to cherish this temple from now on. Saojiro was glad to hear that and moved forward. He recalled that to survive in the wild, it was better to have backups in case of emergency. And as it stands, they were relying on the river as their water source. But when it rains, he thought it would be dangerous to get close to the river and water might also get muddy for days. So he got the idea of storing water and told Ayano that they were going to dig a well. He wanted her to help as well, and she agreed at first, but when she recalled those ghost stories of a ghost coming out from the well, she requested him to keep the well away from her house. He has a pretty good idea of what she might be thinking, but guess it's fine, and they would make a hand pump for her too. Now they were thinking of the process for making a hand pump. He recalled seeing it a long time ago, that a pump was basically made of a similar structure of a syringe. So in that case, they need a cylinder and a piston. With their need clear now, he decided to make the cylinder box using the same method as the wooden bucket he made. He attached the bottom plate with a large hole in the center. The cylinder was completed without any trouble, and next he got to make a piston. He cut the wood and shaved it into a cylindrical shape, then smoothened the edges while making sure it would fit the inner edges of the cylinder. Next, he punched a hole in the middle of the cylinder, then glued the tanned leather to the side, making a rubber plate around it. Next, he shaped the copper plate he bought in town into a square, then fixed it to the rubber sheet and attached it with the leather and cylinder, able to make a strong and reliable valve, which would only let the water come up but not go down. And with that, the piston was finished, and next, they needed to fix the rod to the piston. The mechanism for hand pump was completed, and now he guesses they should give it a try. He filled some water in the cylinder and made sure there were no leaks around it. He then tried moving the piston and the structure worked perfectly, pumping the water properly. He then made some final parts for the hand pump and a base, finishing the whole structure. Next was the process of installation, and they needed to set up a bottom with a second valve separated from the piston. For that, he carved a thick wooden board, matching the size of the pump, and cut a round hole in the center. Afterwards, he designed the layer around the hole carefully, cut the stone into a cone to fit the hole and attached a straight wooden rod to the center. He passed the rod through the hole in the board, then glued a large disc-shaped stone into the tip. The second valve was completed, which would be supported by the rod and move along with it. He seemed to be in deep thought, and when Ayano asked him if something was wrong, he replied it's just he thought it would be impossible to make a hand pump for him. But it ended up working out really well, which must be because of the goddess blessing. They took a break and Ayano asked if they were going to start digging next. He nodded, but before that, they needed to make a riser pipe and casing pipe. From here on, he would need Ayano's help as well, and she promised to do her best. He took a tree stick of a suitable thickness for making a long pole, then wrapped the bark sheet around it and fixed it in place. Once he pulled out the pole, it became a water pipe. And since the bark's time was stopped by fixed skill, it was sturdy enough to not collapse by anything, and it won't rot from water either. After he was done making a couple of them, Ayano helped him carry them one by one and attach them into a single long pipe. Yukutama did a survey for them to find the perfect place for setting the hand pump. When Ayano noticed he was drilling holes into the pipe, she asked him why behind it. He explained they needed to be made at the bottom, so the groundwater could enter through these holes to fill the pipe and the hand pump draws that water up. After that, the pipe work was done and they just needed to dig the well. Saojiro dug a shallow hole at the site, and to make work easier, he used a post-hole shovel to dig a little further, then lastly drilled the down. Then placed the casing pipe in the hope and drove it in like a pile. He counted on Ayano for further steps, as she used her shadow manipulation to drive the pipe in. Saojiro asked her out of curiosity if chanting spells make any difference. She replied that doing this makes it stronger. Saojiro figured it might do something after all, and since he needed to drive the casing further in the ground, he summoned the hammer while chanting. He was amazed, because after chanting it like that he was feeling good. Yano commented they were the same in that case. And that aside, Saojiro could feel the strength in the hammer was feeling a bit different after chanting like that, as if the hammer was responding to him somehow. He thought maybe this was what she talked about. He then hit the casing further down till they reached the good enough depth. Next, he shovels the drill inside and spins it, Normally, he would have pulled out the drill to remove the soil and repeated the process, but since Ayano was here, she was using her shadow to store magic along with the drill, which made the process a lot faster and it was done in one go. Saojiro was amazed by this kind of use for shadow storage, and dealing with dirt like this was pretty convenient thanks to her. He told her they should keep going, and after removing the soil, they began adding the pipeline. After some time, Saojiro hammered it a little to adjust the straightness, and they could also hear the sound of water in the pipe. Now, they removed the riser pipe and saw the water had filled up to the top as expected. This confirmed that the whole setup was done perfectly, and lastly they added the hand pump on top of it. They were kinda nervous now, and after adding Griffin the priming water, Saojiro pushed the handle and water came out from the hand pump. They had a storage place to store it, and the whole hand pump project was completed, creating a solid backup for water. He asked Ayano to try it as well, and she pushed the handle to bring out more water. She was really happy since she also worked hard on this, and Saojiro was pleased to see her smile. Apparently, Yukutama would take care of the drainage, so Saojiro would just have to make catch basins to make it all look more natural. At the same time, Mr. returned back home and she was curious how they were doing. Saojiro told her they made the hand pump and it was completed thanks to Ayano. Mischa figured she would wash her feet since they were dirty, so Saojiro went to get a towel for her. Mischa was cheerful upon seeing the cold and refreshing water right at their home and asked Ayano what exactly she did. Before she could respond, Mac jumped straight into the water. By the time Saojiro returned, he saw Mac shaking the water off while Mischa and Ayano were splashed with water. Ayano didn't want this happening right after she worked so hard today and her legs were giving out. The next day, Saojiro suggested making an off-grid cabin, which was a building designed to be independent of public utilities for lifelines. He wanted to build one for them and happened to have come across this concept while watching YouTube videos. Ayano got an idea of what he was talking about, but she asked how he watched those boring videos. He mentioned it had girls working on it, and it had tons of views which got him curious. Ayano asked if he meant those videos with girls having a clickbait thumbnail on them highlighting their boobs. Saojiro gave a poker smile and just drank water, not expecting her to catch on to that. Mischa teased him, as she came to know he was actually watching boobs that time. He kept repeating he only watched because of high views, but Ayano knows better. He wished she would learn to keep quiet at times, and moving forward, he mentioned there were a lot of different frames of cabins in the videos. And what he wanted to make was supposed to be a rest house. The ones where they have all the sitting and resting places inside and gather there. He figured they could also have dinner together there, making it more enjoyable. Mischa didn't mind at all and wondered why he needed to ask that. Saojiro replied because he was going to make it big, so it might even take them a few days. And even though Mischa and Ayano could work on other useful things, he wondered if they could help him make something irrelevant like this. Both Ayano and Mischa didn't expect him to feel uncertain about something like that, and they looked at each other before answering him that they would be happy if he thinks about his own feelings more. So if he wants to build it, he doesn't need their permission and can do whatever he likes. And as for Ayano, she claimed that having a bed and a place was all she needed, there was nothing else in her mind anyway. So she just does whatever as long as he doesn't kick her out. Mischa tapped on his back to cheer him up and remind him he was granted the power of divine tools to enjoy, so he gotta be more free with his actions. Saojiro was thankful to both of them, and he began working on the structured design of the cabin. He drew the designs on paper, and while he was working on it, Cineria came to ask if he finally decided to build a sleeping place for her. She told him it's a good decision if that's the case, but Saojiro was kinda amazed by her pride, which was bigger than a human's. She warned him not to mention words like big and small because she hated them due to her tiny size. She even threatened to fill the cedar pollen down the throat of Ayano. Ayano shouted why Cineria didn't think she could hurt her master, so Ayano was the only option. Saojiro told Cineria to leave her alone and she obeyed him. Ayano had formed this image of fairies being barbaric in her mind, and Saojiro could feel relationships between those get complicated real quick. Cineria asked again if he was making a bedroom. He replied it was a rest house. In that case, she asked him why don't he make the window bigger. Saojiro noticed she doesn't mind if she uses the word big, and mentioned he doesn't have any glass, so making windows larger wasn't meaningful. But then he wondered if she had a way for them to have glass. She did know something, which was not exactly glass, but Cineria could make a thin, transparent sheet with wood and water. And also, the dissolving liquid from a silky moss like musubai. Saojiro can't thank musubai enough for just how useful she was, and as for the fairy, she claimed she would be the one making it, not that moss. Saojiro bowed and requested her to go ahead and make it. Cineria did everything she said and really made something like glass called CNF film. Saojiro was extremely grateful for that and learned that some trees were made of hardened cellulose, which was used to make this glass by thinning it out with fairy magic. He recalled hearing of something like that once, and this CNF film was lightweight, high strength, and airtight, yet being stronger than steel. And most importantly, it was transparent like glass. Soneria asked if they could make windows now. Saojiro confirmed it would work perfectly, in which case she had demands for him to make a bedroom. He told her he didn't mind, but he was making a shared space right now. Soneria didn't mind at all and told him to do as he wished. He asked if she was actually planning to take it over later. She looked the other way, vaguely claiming it's not like that. But she was totally gonna fight for it. Soneria disappeared afterwards, leaving him with a bit of worry and more work to do. But it was fine since he got materials ready thanks to her. Saojiro recalled creating a wedge-shaped box would be enough to make a good A-frame cabin, for which he first laid down a foundation of large stones, then built a base with a square frame and thin boards. On top of that, he created a layer for air using CNF film, like double-paned glass. It made the foundation both waterproof and insulated, and he could move on to laying down solid wood boards to finish the floor. Next was the parts for roof and walls, for which he lined up more frames on the floor, making the basic structure clear. It looked like a triangle to Ayano. He stated it's because the design followed it. Next, she helped him lay the loft floor before doing the walls, and she was kinda eager to see the final design, as the place seemed like it would be a dark, cramped place. Saojiro put up the windows afterwards, then installed the door and siding as well. He also applied CNF film over the outer walls for waterproofing and some ventilation support. She asked him why don't he just fix everything with his skill, since they won't need to apply CNF on the outer roof that way. He reminded her that his fix skill made the bucket completely waterproof, and if he used the same thing here, he was worried they would suffocate due to using too much airproofing as well. After applying the film, he painted the cabin with black color, and after a few days of adjustments and work, the cabin was finally finished. Mischa asked to say 2 words about the cabin before they checked it out. He replied it was tough work, but seeing the result, it turned out better than he imagined. So it was worth it. She commented he sounded like a craftsman there and gave her opinion on the cabin looking really well made. She could feel the concept of unity in the building, since it was finished thanks to many races working together in harmony, guided by the divine tool's touch. Mischa thought it had a nice atmosphere to it. Saojiro was left in awe by her amazing feedback. Then Soneria came and pointed out it was a very elf-like opinion. Mischa reminded her she was an elf. Soneria added elves see both outside and inside for an opinion. But Mischa seemed to be just fine with the outside. No wonder she doesn't care if others don't get her and call her arrogant. Mischa was ticked off by that remark and warned Soneria to choose her words wisely, since Mischa only gave an initial look at the cabin and it wasn't over. Soneria sighed, claiming to be just teasing her, and that aside, she liked the aesthetics of the cabin. Despite the lack of fancy designs, it looked really well while hiding the joints with a good design. But the plain black paint was supposed to often blend into the scenery, and yet this one kinda stood out in the forest. Overall, Soneria remarked it was excellent work by the master, and Saojiro was happy by her feedback. Mischa was shocked as she just lost to that fairy in giving better feedback, and told Saojiro she was also thinking the same thing. Soneria told her better choice of words always wins, which she had, not Mischa. Saojiro added Ayano also worked hard on the cabin with him, and she wishes he won't drag her into the troublesome stuff. He remembered she was an introvert and quickly changed the topic, saying they should check it from inside now. Mischa saw there was also a bed, and Saojiro made one like the fairy requested. Soneria lied down right away and found it suitable for mating, and asked Saojiro if he wanted his reward for making this excellent bed right now. He punched the side of the mattress and made her fly, and her words kinda worried him if he might have unconsciously made the bed comfortable according to those weird ideas. He turned to Mischa and promised he wouldn't think like that pervert fairy there. She nodded to his words, and he mentioned the bed he made could be split into 2, so it could also be used as a bench perfectly. And about this big window here, it had a black film on top, which could block the view and light from outside. It was made on Ayano's request since she didn't seem to be a fan of sunlight. And the biggest feature he made was that this large window could be opened up. It looked really amazing, and Mischa was enjoying this house tour a lot. That smiling face was exactly what Saojiro was hoping to see, while Fairy told Ayano Saojiro must have made a secret spot for him and the elf to spend some time together. Saojiro could hear them from here, which startled both of them. Saojiro moved on, claiming they have a room to breathe now. With surplus water and sleeping space, they would be fine even if they buy a lot of stuff from town or catch a big hunt. And they also found a good merchant in the town, so making something sellable would be great in future to keep on living. and he was sure they would love things he had in mind, like handmade goods and some luxuries they haven't seen before. This was exactly the kind of laid-back life Sojiro wished for, and Ayano wanted to help him out occasionally too. He was fine with that, and Mischa could see him finally taking a rest now. Here in the resting cabin, Sojiro decided to spend his time being free for a while with his friends. Meanwhile, back in town, Dolero was surprised when he heard Sedek found a buyer for the gallbladder of the venom snake from the Divine Tree Forest. Sedek confirmed that was right, and a certain king's heir was wounded in a recent battle and battling poison right now. She casually mentioned having that gallbladder with him, and Dolero asked if Sedek talked to a royal merchant. Sedek claimed he kinda spoke to the king directly, which was a big shock, and he yelled at Sedek for being careless. He told him to take the time back to his place and handle things, because Dolero doesn't want to take responsibility if things go bad. Sedek claimed his house was full of paintings, but Dolero told him to just throw them away. But Sedek can't do that as he loved those paintings he made. Moreover, he doesn't mind taking responsibility for it. Sedek was kinda looking forward to Sojiro's next visit, but Dolero thinks with the supplies they took last time, they should be fine for over a year, and Dolero have arranged an equal amount of stuff for next time already. But Sedek feels like if his group were to grow, or if their stuff was eaten by beasts, they would come back sooner. And what if he sells more instead of collecting the items? Dolero was already worried about the debt he was already in, and Sedek was curious if he could sell his paintings and make a fortune as well. Dolero didn't think it was any helpful talking to Sedek, and wished he could just sleep well for now. Around the same time, Sojiro was wondering if he should pay a visit to the town soon. The next day out of the blue, Sceneria requested the master to hold a drinking party. Sojiro was surprised to hear that, and it seems she had already brought a barrel full of booze with her. Apparently, she wanted to reconcile with the dark mage there, since a fairy was supposed to be adored by all humans, yet Ayano was persistently acting terrified around her. Sojiro can't believe Sceneria was only doing it out of her tyrannical ego, and she brought alcohol, thinking it should be enough to make someone friendly with them. And Sceneria would use this drinking party to repair relations with Ayano while she's intoxicated. It wasn't just that, and she also brought something in the large bag there. Sojiro asked what she brought in it. Sceneria wore glasses while proudly boasting her good connections with some plant-type fairies, so she brought something from them. She opened the bag and showed the contents in it to Sojiro, and he was extremely astonished by the sparkling white from it. Sceneria knew Master would understand its value, and it was indeed the case, because Sojiro had not seen rice in this world till now, and here it was filled in a large bag. It was more than precious for a foodie like him, and Sceneria asked him if it was not worth a banquet. Since the answer was obvious, she demanded some conditions, to have one night of banquet with tasty food and drinking party. Sojiro was so moved by the rice, he just thanked her and never expected to find them. She told him he was free to worship her, and heck he was ready to even carve a statue of her if she wanted, be it stone or wood. Sceneria asked him if he was serious, Sojiro nodded, adding that Mischa would be even more happier than him. So, if there's anything the fairy wants, he told her she was free to ask for it. Sceneria then had one thing she wanted, which was for him to refrain from saying such things so lightly in the future. He didn't think it was like her to say that, and her reasoning was that Sojiro seemed to be unaware that compared to his power of divine tool, the value of rice was trivial, and this whole forest was exclusively for him to exploit as he wished. However, he doesn't need to be limited to this forest, and if he wishes, he could leave it whenever he wants and do anything like conquering other countries and ruling the world. Even acquiring the largest kingdom for him would be easy, and he could demand all the world's wealth and luxuries with his power. So, something like rice was trivial, and there's no need for him to settle for meager comforts in a forest like this. She reminded him he was a sacred one, capable of forging the world with his divine tool. She asked him again what he thinks about conquering the world and living as a god. Sojiro didn't take long to answer with a clear mind, that if he did that, Mischa would not be happy with him anymore. The fairy was amused by such a short and simple answer, while Sojiro didn't want his life to be complicated by anything too grand. And more than the rice he received, he thinks the thoughtfulness of the fairy was much more valuable and appreciable. The fairy was moved by his answer, and figured if he wanted to offer something in return for rice, she happened to have borrowed it from an acquaintance's warehouse, so it would be great if he could give a replacement. Sojiro was dumbfounded by that demand, because it made it look like Sceneria stole this rice and booze from someone. She denied it wasn't like that while turning away her eyes. Moreover, she believed for a fairy such as her to ask someone to share would not be worthy of her pride, especially for a grain of rice at that. Sojiro just went along and agreed to make something to properly thank whoever she stole rice from. She informed him the ones she brought them from were not exactly humans or fairies, but they do have human forms. Saojiro was fine with it and held the banquet as requested by the fairy. Later, Mischa and Ayano were really overjoyed to hear about the party, with Mischa excited for booze and Ayano excited about the rice. Seeing them jumping around in excitement felt good to him, and he also told them that it was the fairy who brought them stuff to celebrate meeting everyone. Soneria straight up denied having said such things. Mischa was surprised to see that the fairy had a cute side to her and commented that she was nice after all. She also could not wait for the rice, even though she didn't know how they tasted. Saojiro figured her reaction was expected, and as for Ayano, she seemed to be blinded by the rice and would not even look up for a second. Saojiro wished she could at least take a look at the fairy who brought it, but when she mentioned it's been 4 whole years since she saw rice, Saojiro could understand her feelings as a fellow Japanese. He left her with rice for now and told them they gotta prepare for the banquet. Giano went to gather herbs with Katama, the fairy went to get mushrooms, while Mischa went to get some meat. She ended up catching some lobsters as well, and Saojiro wanted to taste it first before making a proper dish out of it. She told him he was kinda picky, but he can't help that since Japanese people eat pretty much anything from water bodies. She asked out of joke if he would eat even merman if he finds one. He told her there were no mermen in Japan, but now he was kinda curious to know if mermaids also exist in this world. She confirmed they obviously did, but then noticed the serious look on his face. She was kinda worried, and he told her it was just a joke and he didn't mean anything by asking that. Mischa was relieved to hear that and she splashed some water on him. He played with water for a bit while recalling a tale from old Japanese legends. He skipped that for now and went to cook after collecting all the ingredients. Mischa handled making the potato starch, Ayano handled making flour with the wheat they brought from town. He made a stone mill for that purpose, and while others were busy in their work, Saojiro was handling the knife work. He also raj a taste test of the shrimp caught earlier, and it tasted pretty good with a rich flavor to it. Mac came to him and started wagging his tail. Saojiro asked if he wanted some shrimp as well. He gave a little portion of it to Mac, and he seemed to have liked it so much he started running around. Although when he indicated to want more of it, Saojiro had to say no, and the poor Mac went away with a sad look on his face. Saojiro felt bad, so he offered one more piece, but Mischa was sitting there instead, also wanting to try it. She opened her mouth as if wanting him to feed her, and he could not just say no to her. He ended up feeding her more, and she found it delicious. She called out Yano to come and try as well. Yano was wondering if she was supposed to get on all fours to try a piece as well. He told her there's no need for that, and another fillet was gone in just the tasting process. Later in the night, the dinner was ready, and they began with a toast with a glass of booze. The special items of the menu were beer and steak. Mischa can't help but be amazed by the amazing combination, and it tasted better than ever. Next up on the menu was fried fillet with a coating of potato starch. He can't believe he was able to pull out such an amazing banquet. He seems to be noticing how glad Mischa was, so the fairy told him not to spoil the long ear too much. Next up on the menu was assorted tempura and river shrimp paella, which were the main items Ayano was waiting all day for. It's been so many years since she tasted rice and these dishes, she was lost in her own world for a while eating them. Mischa noticed Ayano was crying a lot. Saojiro figured it couldn't be helped, since she had been complaining about the food she had in the past 4 years, and she did well to survive that way somehow. Mischa was curious why she didn't make dishes herself like Saojiro, to which the fairy took the liberty to respond, saying that some humans can't cook, and even in Otherworlders 99% of them can't cook. Saojiro was curious to see that 1%. The parry went on for a while, as the dishes finished one after another and their dinner banquet came to an end. Later, they sat down beside the campfire together just to chill. Mischa spoke up first, saying dark magic users usually eat people or show others illusions, which made Ayano understand why she was treated so badly in the royal court. The fairy was curious why Ayano even had dark magic, despite having zero faith in dark things. She replied it just came as a cheat skill and she only has faith in shonen magazines. Saojiro also added that his only regret after death was not being able to finish the manga he was reading. Mischa was curious and asked what's a manga, which was where Ayano was a specialist. Saojiro mentioned it as a joke, even though Ayano's chanting was just an imitation from manga, which made her blush and avoid that topic. She then summarized her own life in manga terms, which would sound like she was a high school girl who got reincarnated in another world with cheat powers. Ayano mentioned her story started when one day she fell downstairs on her way back, and her head became warm with blood and she lost consciousness for a bit. Then she ended up finding a gate in a pitch-black world, and when she opened her eyes, she was in a dim forest in another world. And so, her life as an otherworlder began from there. First, she had lost a lot of memories from her previous life, and when goblins attacked her out of nowhere, she started crying. She somehow chanted a dark magic spell and fought the monsters. And after that, she went to the nearest human town she could find, and someone suggested to her that wandering mages should head to Adventurer Guild. So she had no choice but to be an adventurer, even though it was scary, gross, and deadly. She had decided early on to only work until she saved up enough money and open a sweets shop. The only isekai story she remembers that time was of the protagonist dominating the sweet-making industry. She hoped that her sweets would become famous, and she would sell them and get rich, and be able to say goodbye to this hardworking life. But when some other adventurers saw her using dark magic, they had a peculiar reaction. Ayano asked them if dark magic was bad. They feared before her like rats and just left, saying that monsters were attracted to dark magic. Ayano realized she had been inviting monsters to near-town areas without knowing it, and she thought getting companions must be nice. But a loner like her could not make any friends, and she happened to see some strong adventurers who were surrounded by many people. She thought if she also became stronger, more people would talk to her. But one day she ended up meeting another dark mage and got a grimoire from them. That dark mage told her they were different from ordinary mages, and he asked her to open some gate or some sort to summon a demon. She had no idea what that guy was saying, and when she tried to read the grimoire, none of the words made sense to her. She then automatically started remembering things about dark magic and realized it could only summon dangerous and gross beasts. But she wanted something cuter instead. She continued to fight monsters with dark magic since it was the only thing she could use, and she felt great upon becoming stronger. She thought now that she got strong enough to wipe out a monster nest by herself, she might be revered as a cool person and people would come to talk to her. But they were instead terrified to think they had a dark magic user with that kind of power. They started calling her a witch, and Ayano's plan didn't work at all. Then one day she heard cries for help and helped some guys out of trouble. They were the same duo from before, and they claimed to have come here after hearing rumors of a suspicious cultist controlling monsters. Ayano asked if they meant her, and the girl admitted she was wrong since she saw monsters were attacking Ayano as well. The guy was thankful for Ayano saving them, and the girl claimed Ayano was the most suspicious one before she saved them. And since they know she wasn't a bad person, they asked her if she wanted to come with them. They have heard things like Ayano liked to be alone and all, but they were worried she might be misunderstood by others as a bad person if she returns alone. She was really happy to be approached, and when they asked her for her answer, Ayano mustered up courage to say yes and join them. She was really happy to finally have some friends, thanks to the dark magic and that grimoire guy. However, the next day they found the cultist and he had a lot of monsters under his control. They got into a fight and Ayano fought them seriously. She was way stronger than her enemies, and most of them died while screaming she was not acting like a proper dark mage, and one asked just what the hell did she do with the grimoire. At that time she wondered how this guy knew about the grimoire and didn't really get it. Then the guy spoke his last words, this world was evil, after which he killed himself. Ayano thought cultists were scary, but her partners thought Ayano's attacks were even scarier. After the battle, the girl apologized to Ayano for misunderstanding her earlier, and the guy also added she was more like a kid. Ayano told them she had only been adventuring for a month, and it kind of felt great to be praised by them. She was really happy to have made some friends for real, and then they found the dark mage's mask. While they were talking about how it would not be enough for proof, Ayano asked them if this grimoire here would do. They were shocked to see it coming from Ayano, and she became worried that she would be in trouble and he would be treated like a cultist by others. The adventurers figured she surely would be suspected if she went alone, so they would stay with her and cover for her. Ayano wondered what to do, and they put her on dinner duty that night. They smiled as they assured to cover for her, and she almost believed them. But 1 hour later, she seemed something was wrong and ran away from there. She thought that was close, and after buying some sweets from next town, she left that country. Saojiro wondered why did she run in first place. Ayano told him she read in a manga that when characters speak sweet words when she hadn't done anything to make them trust her, was proof enough they were trying to deceive her. So she had a hunch they were pretending to be kind and exploit her weakness later on. Mischa hugged her, feeling and for everything the poor kid went through. And Saojiro also thought that compared to him, Ayano really been through a lot. Ayano was happy after they listened to her story, and she kind of put them on curiosity, saying a sequel to her story was in the making. Ayano then mentioned having heard in the royal court that elves grow on trees and are born from pollen or something. Mischa has heard those rumors going around and corrected that in reality, no elves would like to be born like humans and growing on trees was their way. But that wasn't all to it, and humans got it all wrong. Actually, they use magic to give birth. Saojiro asked if that was the case, could Mischa have a child with Ayano since she was a mage as well? Mischa straight up denied it was not like that, and if anyone here, it would have to be Saojiro to make a baby. When she realized what she said, she yelled at him for making her say that. He told her she played herself into it. Ayano was amused to see even elves laugh at dirty jokes, while Sounding was kinda trying to suppress his laughter. The fairy was observing, then Demand was glad as they continued bickering with each other. Afterwards, Mischa ended up falling asleep outside, so Saojiro was carrying her back to her home. He noticed she was lighter than expected, and while he was carrying her, he didn't know that she had already woken up and noticed he was carrying her. She planned to fake sleep and doze off again later, but now when he was taking her back to her room, she just let him. Being held like that felt good, and she didn't want to admit her body was heating up. She decided to wake up once she was in bed, so even if he catches her faking sleep, she could just laugh it off. But he ended up taking her to the cabin, and it reminded her of the fairy's words about bed being suitable for mating. Mischa was hardly keeping herself calm, while Saojiro removed her hair clip and put her to bed. She doesn't have any experience, so it made her a little nervous, and in the midst of her confusion, she lost the chance to wake up. Saojiro can't help but think she was beautiful, touching her cheeks without thinking. He figured he should leave now, so he got up and left. Mischa, on the other hand, was feeling so nervous, wondering what she should do. She waited to see what would happen next, and her fast heartbeat calmed down slowly as she realized Saojiro had already left. She was kind of feeling unsure what to feel about just being left on the bed, and when she woke up, she saw the fairy sitting there with a mug of booze watching the scene play out. Mischa asked her if she had been here the whole time. Cineria replied with a question, asking if she wanted to hear what Cineria saw and what comments she got to say. Mischa warned her she won't finish her words, seeing which Cineria just quietly took her leave. Mischa cursed the fairy as she turned to sleep. Then she saw Yano and asked her if she was awake. Yano kept her eyes closed while saying she was sleeping. Mischa recalled she was also carried like her and asked if she pretended to be asleep the whole time. Why didn't she open her eyes if she was awake? Ayano replied she didn't know what to do and that was just it. Mischa called it all Saojiro's fault and Ayano agreed with her. Apparently, in her whole 200 years of life she has never panicked like this. And it wasn't even anything like love, she just didn't think it would be fine for an elf and human to be a thing. Ayano figured Japanese guys would be fine with elves, but on second thought it was uncertain. Mischa urged her to answer if that was a yes or a no. She doesn't think it matters, but to Mischa it does because she used to turn people down by saying the exact same line. Yano was curious to hear more about that story and they kept talking. Meanwhile, the fairy went to Saojiro and asked if he was awake. He nodded, and she muttered she should have brought wine instead of beer from her acquaintance's warehouse. Saojiro asked her where she had been till now. The fairy replied she was just doing some art appreciation. She then told him he did good work and wondered if she meant that for helping her make up with Ayano. Cineria figured that was the case too, and now she has leverage over Ayano. There was no problem anymore. Saojiro thought that was the problem itself, and either way, they deepened their bonds at drinking parties. Or so he thought, but the next day when he was on watch over the bath, he only looked at Mischa normally, and she went off jumping into the water to hide. He noticed she had been acting strange since morning. Did he do something when they were drunk or something? Fairy kinda hinted it might be right, and that aside, he went on to garden works next. While he was working with Katama, he noticed Mischa left for hunting just like that today. He wondered if she was okay. Then Mac came barking as if there was an emergency. He asked Mac where Mischa was and he began guiding him to somewhere. Saojiro understood what Mac was saying and even Katama began running to follow Mac. He became worried about Mischa and followed Mac as well. After running for a while, he could see a silhouette in the distance, which seemed to belong to Mischa from a closer look. He tried calling her out and was shocked to find her covered in blood. He asked her what happened, was she okay? And also why was there blood all over her? She assured him the blood was not hers, but this little one's she found over here, referring to a dragon lying down on ground injured. Later, they brought the dragon back to their home and she apologized for suddenly bringing a dragon home. He told her it was okay, he would have done the same thing. They placed the dragon in Mischa's house for now, and currently it is scared and wary of them. Mischa stated that dragons were said to be extinct, and this one seemed to be a sub-dragon species called a wyvern. When she found it injured, Mischa struggled to decide if she should leave that thing like that in the forest or not, and decided to take it in. She got covered in blood while trying to tie the wyvern to calm it down. and she had Mac to call Saojiro so he could protect them against the monsters approaching them after being drawn by blood scent. Now he told her to go wash off that blood for now, and she agreed with him. She ran over and washed herself real quick and returned. Saojiro was playing with Mac in the meantime, while she quickly checked up on the condition of the dragon by hearing sounds from the house, and it seemed to be still restless right now. She mentioned it might scratch up walls, but it was totally fine with Saojiro. They could fix it later. Mischa was thinking what was the best way to help the dragon heal since it doesn't trust her yet. So she could do minimal assistance while relying on its natural healing. She asked Saojiro if she could get some leafy branches and put them inside. He was fine with it, and she left to get them. Saojiro could see Mischa was kinda restless, and the next morning, he was woken up by Mac before the usual time. He had a sad look on his face, and Saojiro wondered what happened since it was before dawn. He noticed Mischa was standing over there and went to ask her what she was doing. She was worried about the wyvern, and he got what she meant, but it was still dark right now. She claimed to have been in this forest for 20 years, and she had never seen one dragon till now. And even in her 200 years of life she hasn't. So she thought dragons were long gone, and she didn't want this one here to go extinct on her watch. Saojiro figured her words make sense, but she seems to be taking it too seriously, prioritizing over her own self. And since that day, she had been completely occupied with the dragon. Whenever he would approach her, she would always bring something for the dragon like magic stones, and some days he wouldn't see her and ask Ayano where she was. Ayano would say she went hunting because the dragon was picky about the meat. And another day, he asked the fairy where Mischa went, and she replied it was again to look for magic stones. Saojiro thought their timing was off, and Fairy did not like being put at the watch for dragon's care by Mischa. Another day went by without seeing Mischa, and Mac has also been feeling down now. Mischa was running around so much Mac could not keep up, which made him curious if the dragon was doing fine. Days passed by without a proper conversation with Mischa, and when he saw her one day she seemed to be lacking sleep. And yet she refused to sleep. He didn't want to disturb her rest, so she asked him if he needed something. He replied it's fine, just told her to get some rest herself. He didn't want to disturb her in the middle, then Mischa called him out and asked if there was something wrong after all, given how she has not been normal lately. She asked if she had been slacking off too much because of the dragon, in which case she promised to help out later. He told her it's not that, he just wanted to ask something. He mentioned it was related to that dragon, and asked if he could see or touch it. Mischa asked him if he was interested in dragons, to which he agreed and expressed how badly he wanted to pet it. Mischa was happy to see he also liked to meet the dragon, and assured him the dragon was tamed now. He could pet it just fine, after which she asked him to come inside the house. The wyvern seemed to be on guard when it saw Saojiro, and he asked her if it was really fine. She hugged him to show he was completely safe and was a friend of his. The dragon seemed to be calm now and let him pet its neck. Saojiro approached the dragon little by little and managed to pet its neck. It felt great. Then the dragon started looking at him a bit differently, as if it sensed something, then it looked above. Saojiro thought maybe the cabin was too small, so he should take the roof off. Mischa advised him not to, because if they take the roof off, the wyvern might try to fly away, which would only worsen its injuries. Saojiro talked to the dragon, asking him to behave himself afterwards. Mischa was surprised to see him talking to the dragon, and asked if he could understand it. He replied he wasn't sure, but somehow the wyvern was able to sense the presence of craft gear and seemed to be drawn towards it. Its reaction was very similar to the spirit beasts. Confirming even more that the sacred relic in his hand just made the spirit beasts feel warmth and be drawn towards it. Mischa was amazed he was already liked by the dragon even though they just met. He figured it's thanks to goddess blessing. He was sure the goddess herself must have a soft spot for animals just like him. Mischa figured it might have also been why that goddess might not have been popular, since she must have spent a lot of time with animals instead of spreading her name. Mischa began to play with the dragon, while Saojiro wondered if Mischa was looking happier with the wyvern. After that, the wyvern stopped trying to escape and recovered enough to walk and even run outside. At the same time, Mischa also became normal and more involved with others like she used to. She informed Saojiro that wyverns prefer sleeping standing up, although she never saw it herself. So Saojiro just made a perch for wyvern, which kind of reminded him of something he had been worried about. Apparently, he borrowed rice and sock from a fairy earlier, which was actually stolen goods by Cineria, and now he has to start thinking about what to craft for the one she stole from. He was thinking of using something that could work in the rest house, something that helps one rest, something like a sofa. Ayano heard the sofa and was all up for the comforting idea. She had been tired of the two hard chairs in this world. In that case, Saojiro asked her to help him out with this. He worked on the sofa and came up with a soft, large pillow for starters. Mischa tried it and enjoyed how soft it was. It could even shift into any shape. She never felt anything this comforting till now. Ayano jumped in to drown herself in the pillow, releasing all the laziness at once. Sojiro could tell she was already a lost cause now. Ayano suggested they should call this sofa as the sofa that ruins elves. Mischa was curious about what was inside this sofa thing, to which Sojiro replied he filled it with evil slime cells after cutting them down into tiny pieces. He got that idea from the time Ayano encountered slime. And for the fabric, it was made by Musubai. He just used fixation skill to connect fabrics one by one carefully. Now, he just wanted to see how Scenaria would react. She was already liking it and wanted so badly to show this to someone who thinks they got everything in this world understood in their thousands years of life. She bet that person would be writhing on the floor after seeing this. Right then something sprinted fast from Sojiro's side, and he saw it was Wyvern, who also wanted to rest on the sofa. It was already fast asleep, pushing Ayano off the sofa unintentionally. Sojiro figured this one might love the sofa more than anyone else. So he went ahead and filled the shed where Wyvern lived with sawdust and layered it all over like a pool. The next morning, the Wyvern was as expected sleeping on it like a baby. Mischa was feeling awkward, because this means her information about Wyvern sleeping while standing was wrong. Sojiro comforted her by saying one learns from their habits. It can't be helped she heard it from old legends. Mischa noticed the Wyvern was up, so she told it to sleep back again if it wanted to. Sojiro was glad to see she has eased up a lot now. She will be fine now and he doesn't have to be worried for her anymore. The following day, he started mornings with stretching, then they took baths in order, then had breakfasts, but Mischa seemed to be avoiding Sojiro for some reason. Especially when he looked at her, it made him worried again, wondering what happened to her now to make her act strangely again. He mentioned it to Ayano that Mischa was acting strange again, and he was worried to the point that he had to bring it up to Ayano himself now. Ayano was surprised he was aware of it, which stabbed him like an arrow. She mentioned when they were bathing, Mischa dived in water and would not come up for long, which made her worried. Sojiro also saw her zoning out during meals, which was even more odd than last time she acted strange. Cinera came and remarked that an elf maiden's heart had come to a stop. Cineria seemed proud of what she seemed to know, while Sojiro didn't have an idea what might be happening to Mischa now. All he knows, she's been acting strange ever since the drinking party, then she came back to normal and now she was weird in a different way. Normally, she would at least say something to him, but she left today without saying anything and didn't take Mac with her either. It was like she was keeping her distance, and whenever he noticed her gaze, she would look away instantly. Sojiro could only think of her avoiding him, and Ayano asked if he did something. Sojiro could not think of anything he did, and while he doesn't know what made her avoid him, he wonders how they could make up now. Ayano reminded him she was a loner her whole life, so it's not like she can give him any helpful tips. He apologized for asking her, realizing she was just a high school girl, so that doesn't mean she would know everything about girls. Ayano doesn't actually find it comforting, and that aside, while they figure out what could be going on. Cineria just looked over them, leaving them to think on their own. Meanwhile in the forest, Mischa was on hunt and gathering tasks as usual. But she felt guilty for avoiding Sojiro. She knows he must have noticed it by now as well. Mischa almost ended up slipping and falling down from the tree, but somehow managed to get up again and calmed down a little, thinking Sojiro won't dislike her just for this. But she still needs to come to clarity, especially after what he said. The scene shifted back to the previous night when Mischa was resting on the sofa, feeling all sorry about troubling Sojiro for a while now. Not only did he not get mad at her about the dragon thing, he even helped out. Whereas she was the opposite, she intended to help him ever since they met, but lately she feels like she has not been showing him her good side. It bothered her and she hoped he would not hate her. Lately, she just has been so uncool and even got the information on Wyvern wrong when Sojiro was really interested in dragons. She also got so excited, she just pressed herself against him, which made her uncontrollably self-conscious now, and she stirred around the pillow, being lost in her thoughts. She looked at Cineria house and said out loud she knows Cineria is there. Cineria showed herself, then Mischa asked her if she knew a lot about humans. Cineria replied just a bit, then Mischa mentioned what Ayano said about Japanese men not minding being with elves. Mischa was curious if that was true, then Cineria asked why she was asking this. Mischa got flustered and asked her if it's possible for an elf and a human to be with each other. She doesn't know if it's acceptable or not. Then realizing she might have said too much, she requested that she just forget what she said, but Cineria straight up asked her what if Sojiro likes Mischa as well. Mischa got lost in thoughts as she never thought about it before. Since Saojiro was a divine being, and he was kind enough that even Mac warmed up to him, Mischa also ended up liking him and would not mind being together with him. Even when they first met, she felt strange. She tried to suppress her feelings, trying to think she should not take a fairy's words seriously and stop thinking about weird things like this. But given how she can't rest at ease, she felt the need to think this through. And whenever elves were mentioned to humans, normally they would scowl at first due to different cultures and lifespans. She wonders if Saojiro might think of her as a nuisance. Saneria knows Mischa was thinking too much, and she decided to lighten her stress by telling her something she heard somewhere. She whispered in her ears something Saojiro said a while ago, that he would rather be with Mischa than have every luxury in the entire world. After she told Mischa how Saojiro thought of her, Mischa was delighted and recalled his smiling face. Her face soon turned red, as she wondered if this meant exactly what she was thinking. She did not want to get on her high horse, so she slapped both her cheeks and went to work. She can't focus on work if she keeps thinking about unnecessary things like this. Mischa jumped into the forest at a faster and more hurried pace than usual. After a while, Saojiro grew worried because Mischa was later than usual and she never stays out this long. He was worried if she won't be coming back since she did take a big bag with her today. He tried not to think it could be the case, given how she won't just leave Mac and Wyvern behind. Which means she might have been caught up in some trouble. He was just about to head into the forest to look for her, then he heard something moving above him. Fortunately, it was none other than Mischa, and their eyes met, creating a silent moment. She broke the silence first and apologized for being late. Mischa asked if he was worried about her being late, to which Saojiro replied he was a little. She thanked him for worrying for her, then he asked her where she was till now, since it does not look like she was hunting today. Mischa got something for him, and she showed him the bag containing some rocks and she claimed to have gone out to gather these. Saojiro asked her what these were, to which she replied they were eggshells. Saojiro didn't know if eggshells could look like this, and she added there was a spot where some bug birds build their nests. The chicks hatched recently, so there were many eggshells lying around. He asked her why she needed them though. Mischa mentioned having heard from Ayano that he was looking for eggshells. Saojiro remembered that now, Mischa added, getting these took a while since they were a bit far, even though she used magic to speed up on the way. She would be happy if these could be helpful to Saojiro. Saojiro was feeling happy because she went to gather all these just for him, even though she knew she would be late. Mischa was nervous and told him if these were not enough, she could get more of them for him. Saojiro accepted them and thanked her, also welcome back to home. Mischa gladly renounced her return to home as she smiled and both of them had a nostalgic moment of happiness together. Suddenly, Mischa jumped with a red face and got behind Saojiro to hide her flustered expression from him. He tried looking at her, but she would keep turning around. Saojiro asked her what she was doing. She claimed it was embarrassing right now, but he didn't understand and when asked, she just headbutted him, telling him to stop. He stood still afterwards while she held him from behind with a shy expression. She then gathered some courage and told him he said some embarrassing words. But Saojiro didn't even say anything yet, however that did not matter to her as she gave the final verdict that he just did and should just accept it. Saojiro calmly gave in and he was not sure why, but she was trying really hard to help him out. Ever since he met Mischa, he had fun gathering all the materials, getting clever ideas from her, and spending time together with her from start to now. It all went so smoothly, and given how much she does for him, he kind of wanted to surprise her in return to show his gratitude. Mischa then asked him what was he making next. He started thinking about it and told her it would be something fun and delicious as well. Ayano came in stating he really should cook something quick as she was hungry. Saojiro assured her he would go right away and they started walking and also noticed Mischa happily playing with Mac. Ayano was glad Mischa went back to normal and she asked Saojiro what really happened. He could not figure it out himself. She then asked why the trouble occurred in the first place. Her words stabbed him real hard, and she followed up with a casual question for Mischa about why she was avoiding Saojiro. She jumped in surprise and claimed she was just overreacting and assured it won't affect her anymore from now on. Saneria was observing her, feeling glad Mischa was normal now, although she was worried about what to eat with snacks and also she wished they had some wine. Saojiro also craved grapes so he could make wine himself. The next day, he received some oranges from Musubai and others, seeing which he was really happy and didn't waste any second to plant the seedlings in the ground. Ayano told him these oranges were actually a luxury fruit in this world, which Saojiro was not aware of. She further added that fruits like grapes, apples, and oranges were expensive in this world. Even plums and berries cost quite a fortune. By Japanese standards, everything might feel a bit sour, but it was still good enough for them to enjoy the fruits. Saojiro was considering using them to make jam. Yano began sharing her tragic experience in this world with jam. She won't even call it a jam. It was just some awful pungent paste, even after they grind small fruits and mix it with honey and spices, then boil it down thick. Even that was better than sweet alternatives, so it's hard to think about just how tasteless food in this world was. Poor Ayano went through a hell, and she would be lucky just to get some fresh fruits raw. Saojiro offered her orange, asking her to try it. She can't help but admire the taste of orange, which was much better than anything she had in those human towns. Even kings don't get to eat something like this. There's not even a trace of oranges being harvested from the sacred tree forest. She feels pretty superior now, satisfied that the bastard king who made her work day and night can't get to eat something this delicious. While she was lost in her revenge thoughts, Saojiro tried oranges with others and complimented the taste a lot. Sweetness and tartness lingering aftertaste that makes one want to eat more right away. He didn't expect to get to eat fruits this delicious in this world. He thanked Musubai and moles, while Yano was so lost in eating she can't count how many times she praised the orange. He offered her to eat as much as she liked. Soon after, Mr. returned and stated today's hunt was brutal. He asked her what happened, to which she replied to have found something incredible. But because it was so amazing, there were other beasts after it as well, so that area became a hotspot where magical beasts hunt each other and show up one after another. She had to fight them all while gathering it. Saojiro considered helping out next time if it was that dangerous. He was worried for her after hearing that. She thanked him for worrying, blushing at the same time, revealing her red face. He then asked her what exactly did she find, to which she replied she'll take it out right now, and the next moment she brought out an orange. She was feeling proud of herself for finding the oranges in this forest and wanted to eat them together with Saojiro. Saojiro told her it was really amazing, trying not to say he had already eaten them. She noticed his reaction was not that much, making her wonder if he didn't get how rare these oranges were. Even nobles could not buy them no matter the price due to unavailability. And they were obviously delicious as well. Saojiro told her he was really happy and also genuinely grateful for everything she did. In that case, she was happy and wanted to share it with everyone, going straight to talk to Ayano. Saojiro tried to stop her, knowing Ayano's reaction would surely be disheartening, so he hoped for a miracle where she might know how to read the room and act. And as expected, Ayano straight up asked Mischa if they were gonna have oranges again. Her words left Mischa dumbfounded. What exactly does she mean by again? After that, Saojiro told her the whole story of how Yukutama and Katama collected the oranges underground and retrieved them. She did feel better after eating some oranges herself. Saojiro mentioned the pasture was going to be finished tomorrow. She asked how come that fast, urging her to praise he was really amazing. While they were talking, the wyvern was playing with Mac, and it seemed to have healed its sounds now. Wyvern now mostly stays outside except when sleeping, and a pasture-like area was made for them to run around and enjoy. And there was also a new shelter for both Mac and Wyvern, since they would grow even bigger in future. He just learned that Mac wasn't actually a dog but a black wolf. He had Yano help him out as well and thanked her. It must have been a lot for her. She doesn't really mind, because her octopus skills have also improved a lot while working, so she was always welcoming for more improvement. Saojiro figured it's good for them both, and they don't need to rush things since he was just doing things because he wanted to, not because it was work of anything. Yano then asked if he saw her octopus dance, with all right arms moving simultaneously, which used to be incredibly tough for her in the past. He didn't want to think about something weird like that, and that aside, he also felt his powers improving as well. He could still feel the hands of Goddess when she blessed him with this divine tool when he was practically done with his life. Now that he got this divine tool, it was up to him to do what he wanted with it. The more he uses it, the more he realizes that the intention behind using the tool defines if it's being used for good or bad. And since he just wanted to take it easy, he figured he should go nice and slow. Saneria arrived and was quite impressed with the large pasture. She then mentioned that Saojiro was spreading something white and sticky in the windows recently. What could it be? He told her it was a starter made from flour and water, but they were definitely not meant for her. She doesn't care and looks forward to eating more of them. Saojiro would now have to make her share too. The next day he woke up and saw a bright light before his eyes. He wondered what it was, then the fairy revealed itself as the source of light in a dramatic way. She also had some more glowing orbs around her which were called pixies, who favor milk and grain, and they also liked the small flower balls he left on the windowsill. She can't help it that these pixies came, since Saneria was a great fairy herself, so it's natural for her underlings to follow. Saojiro just understood that it was her fault his sleep was disturbed. Then she told him it was actually he who summoned these pixies. She told him how big of a deal it was for more fairies to be drawn towards him. but he didn't understand why they would be drawn here in the first place, when he just left a bread starter on the windows. Regardless, he welcomed these pixies and did not feel bad about them visiting him. Cineria told him more about pixies. They wander around harmlessly as long as they were not disturbed or treated roughly. And they would be delighted if Sojiro could leave more of those bread starters for them on windows like this. Sojiro thought about it and checked the flower, only to find out that half of it was gone. Cineria assured him to leave this to her, as she went to a pixie and touched it gently, before slamming it hard into the flower as if punishing it. Sojiro asked her what about not treating them roughly. She replied it does not count as rough treatment, moreover she had another reason for doing it. She asked him to take a look at flower, which fermented a little and the pixies also split into two. He was curious what just happened. Cineria explained what she just did help the flower ferment with help of those pixies. With this, he could ferment as much flour as he liked, and he got the idea that it's something like yeast. Still, this only means he needed to make more of the flour, so he went to get more ingredients and began making it. He used wild yeast to produce the breads and mixed water and flour in equal ratio. Then I left it around 30 degrees Celsius for a few days, and that's it, the flour was ready. This time the flour turned out better than earlier, and he figured it's time to start making bread. He began making the bread starter and flour, then salt and sugar, then add hot water, mix and knead it well. After which he placed it in a pot, covered it to create the baking environment. As the dough baked slowly, it slowly doubled in size, then he gently pressed the dough by hand to degas it. He rounded it once more, then divided the dough and shaped it into rounds. Then let it rest in the pot again to ferment and cover the pot with a stone lid and place a charcoal on top to cook both sides slowly over low heat. And with that the bread was finished. He served them with the orange jam he already prepared. He was just about to try it first himself, finding it hard to wait for others. But just before he could eat it, Ayano arrived, glaring daggers at him with her eyes, and Mac was following what she did. Both of them looked so helplessly at Sojiro, he couldn't help but feel guilty. He claimed to be doing just a taste test, then the fairy arrived and told him to go on and try it then. But he can't just eat alone, so he asked others to taste it as well. Ayano and others jumped in amazement, and they jumped at bread like a trophy. He recalled having asked Mischa what she thinks of bread. She thought of it as just something to dip in with soup. Ayano, on the other hand, could only think bread was something that turns black when baked. Sojiro figured Ayano must have tried baking once. As for Mischa, she seemed to think bread was something hard. Now he offered to try these soft breads he just prepared. Both of them slowly dug into the bread, and their reactions were surely overjoyed, thrilled to eat something this delicious and new, even for Ayano. Mischa wondered how much she could charge for just one piece of this. Sojiro was glad they all liked it, and even the fairy had secretly taken some bites and was loving it. Though she praised him indirectly, saying pixies really loved the bread. She told him it would be perfect to entertain guests, and they would surely be delighted to be served something like this. But Sojiro didn't recall anyone coming. She told him he would understand it soon enough, only hinting that a very big guest would be coming here. While Yano and Masita enjoyed bread and jam, Sojiro was lost in thought of who might be coming. But never did he expect the guest she said would arrive so soon. To his shock, it was a huge dragon. The dragon was also pleased to see a wyvern here. Cineria introduced this large dragon to Sojiro as the Sky Dragon. The dragon stated he came here after being invited by Mischa. Sojiro was feeling like there was going to be some trouble ahead in future if guests this big kept coming in. The dragon introduced his name, Airs, a sky dragon from the celestial dragon clan. Cineria informed him sky dragons were an ancient race that has existed since the age of myth, standing alongside the progenitors of high elves. Airs mentioned having heard from Cineria that a pure-blooded wyvern was here. The dragon was excited to come right away since wyverns were very rare these days. Airs was glad to have come here, but when he tried to greet the wyvern reacted with humility. Airs found it cute, and Sojiro got one thing clear: this legendary sky dragon has almost zero dignity, which might be good for them. The dragon took a closer look at Sojiro. He wanted to look at the sacred one. Airs mentioned there has not been one in a very long time. Even when he himself lived several hundred years, this was his first time seeing one. The wyvern was wary of Airs, then went away from the sky dragon, then hid behind Mischa. She came with amazement, seeing another race she had not seen before, a sky dragon in flesh. Sojiro introduced Airs to Mischa, and she noticed wyvern was being oddly clingy to her today. The sky dragon noticed something and asked Sojiro if he could do something about wyvern not acting friendly towards him. Sojiro couldn't help it, which annoyed the sky dragon. He asked if he was really going to let that high elf monopolize the wyvern, when Airs himself came all the way here. Heirs reminded Saojiro that usually humans are supposed to prostrate themselves in front of sky dragons and beg for their blessings. Masita intervened to make one thing clear to Heirs, that if he keeps troubling Saojiro, a divine punishment awaits him in future. Heirs asked what about her, since he was supposed to be someone elves should worship. She went quiet, then Heirs thought up of something, then he noticed Ayano standing there with a sofa in her hands. Heirs was not expecting a dark presence like that here, and he began preparing to attack her right off the bat. Saojiro felt something bad was gonna happen, and even Ayano became serious about the incoming attack. As the sky dragon unleashed a thunderbolt at her, she quickly summoned her octopus to clash against the attack from the dragon. After the dragon's attack subsided, she came out of her cover, which was made up of multiple octopus arms. She quickly chanted shadow manipulation right afterwards to control the dragon's shadow and freeze it in place. Heirs became helpless, as she covered Heirs' body with octopus arms and trapped him in place, unable to do anything. She defeated the sky dragon like it was nothing, and muttered why she got attacked by something which is supposed to look like a potential delicious meal. Her hungry gaze scared off the dragon, then Saojiro placed his hand on Ayano's head, telling her not to talk like that to their guest. Ayano became normal after Saojiro called her out and asked him about this dragon here. Saojiro told her this was Heirs and he just came to see Wyvern here. She was surprised, and asked why the hell she was attacked by a thunderbolt out of nowhere that really scared her. Saojiro was sure the more scared one here was Heirs, and he realized Ayano could become really terrifying if she fought seriously. She reminded him that she was supposed to be the greatest adventurer. In any case, he told her there was no need to fight here. Heirs came to the conclusion that the Sacred One was keeping things in check here, which gave him some relief. Then the dragon started glowing, and after a few seconds it transformed into a human. He figured now he won't look like food to that girl, and Saojiro noticed Heirs was wearing a kimono, which was odd for this world. Ayano can't help but feel weird to think that large scary dragon turned into a cute, little and beautiful boy with a bold attitude. He told her that sky dragons actually don't have a gender, but she treated him like a boy anyway. Mischa mentioned that rather than talking about that, they should just proceed forward and ask Saojiro what he thinks. He supposed for now, it's all fine as long as Heirs and Ayano don't fight each other just because of their opposite attributes of light and dark. Heirs agreed not to act on impulse, whereas Ayano didn't really mind, boldly saying that the dragon was weak anyway. Saojiro told her not to say unnecessary stuff like that, after which he treated some bread and jam to Heirs. He really liked it just as Cineria expected, and Heirs thanked him for the bread. Although Ayano was giving him suspicious stares from outside. Wyvern was playing around the pasture while Heirs was just sitting in a chair, remaining in his human form and behaving himself. Saojiro was glad things don't seem troublesome now, and Heirs was enjoying his time like a picnic. Heirs remarked this sweet was extremely sinfully sweet, and he hoped Saojiro could give some tips to those other humans who only make heaps of bad-tasting food and breads with spices even in sweet stuff. Saojiro mentioned it was tasting this good, only because the fruits and other things here in this forest were delicious. Heirs added what made this food likable the most was the divine energy filled in it. Saojiro recalls he has heard the same thing before. He asked Heirs what exactly was the divine energy. Heirs replied it's the aura itself, which clings to anything that was touched by the divine being like Saojiro. Saojiro asked if that makes a lot of difference, to which he agreed it does, because things imbued with divine energy have a presence one could feel, especially races like sky dragons and spirit beasts. It's like filtering dirty water until it's clean. One can't taste the water if it's still dirty, but once it's clean, it has a smoother effect while drinking. And once Saojiro has full control of his divinity, he could go even further, being able to put more power than he intends to in anything he uses, like any tool or other things. It would increase his efficiency in all tasks, deserving of being called God's favorite or a god on Earth itself. Saojiro now understands his powers better, and Heirs added that the reason some races could sense divine energy was because they just feel comfort and warmth around it. It's like eating every taste of a future success. Even this bread was so delicious, no matter how many times one day it felt like they were eating at their hungriest, wanting to eat it infinitely. Saojiro feels a little envious of them, but on the other hand, Ayano was grumbling in the side, complaining about her share of bread being over. She wanted more, but Saojiro reminded her she was already as old as she was yesterday. Now it's time to get to work. Heirs teased her as Ayano was taken by Saojiro, and by evening, Heirs took his leave as well. The next morning, though, Heirs came again, greeting morning to Saojiro and asking if he slept well. Saojiro didn't think Heirs would return again, and so early in morning at that. Ayers stated after he went back home, it just made him excited thinking if he went early, he could get a sight of wyverns sleeping all sprawled out. Ayers seemed to have a great amount of liking for wyverns. Saojiro heard Ayers lived really far. Ayers claimed to have come here flying in his dragon form to travel quickly, and he was starving now after using so much energy. He wanted to have breakfast now. He also brought rice from his storehouse, wanting to eat a lot of Saojiro's cooking today. Ayano appeared, being so annoyed to see Ayers she was almost cursing him. Saojiro wished she could calm down, and Mischa carried her away from there. Saojiro agreed to cook after taking a bath in the river, but Ayers also wanted to come along. Saojiro asked didn't he want to take a look at Wyvern. Ayers responded he already did, and it was really adorable, he could watch it every day. On the way, he asked Saojiro if he got a favorite, as in the opposite gender, he replied that would be the goddess. While Ayers was taking a bath, he asked Saojiro if he had considered making a water mill. Saojiro doesn't mind the idea, and with his craft gear and Ayano's help, it should be easy. Ayers hoped he won't overdo and make a lot of things. Saojiro then asked how come sky dragons are so knowledgeable about things like this. Ayers replied it's obviously because they lived so long, this much was basic knowledge for them. If they don't keep acquiring more knowledge, their life would feel like going circles every day. It's very rough to live alone on instinct for hundreds of years. Saojiro could tell Ayers was serious about it, and Ayers added that one's legs even go stiff sometimes. Even his father was exactly like that. Now his father was reluctant to show his face around here, feeling nervous about everything by thinking about it too much. He tried telling him to just show up and talk normally. Saojiro asked if he had a request. Ayers replied nah, it was normal stuff like wanting to see wyverns and other stuff. But he was too confused just figuring out whether it was okay for him to come and say hello first. It was a really big deal for a sacred one to show up in hundreds of years, who was now clearing the forest and also giving them gifts like that sofa, which was like a treasure to them. Ayers' father wanted to prepare a proper gift for him. Saojiro didn't know that sofa was that big of a deal, which seemed a bit much. Ayers added that because of all this, his father kept refusing to let Ayers go to see Wyvern as well. But Ayers didn't listen and just casually came flying around. He thinks his father was still stubborn and grumpy, very different from him. Saojiro wonders if his father might be very strict or think worriedly about Saojiro talking casually with his son. Then out of nowhere, Ayers sensed something from the sky, but Saojiro can't see anything up there. Suddenly, Ayers jumped in joy, and the very next moment, Ayers was pinned down by an attack. Saojiro was startled by the sudden attack, and the next thing he saw was Ayers, defeated with a bump on his head. Ayers was now acting unusual, as he slowly got up and mentioned his father might actually be mad at him now. He shook off the water and changed into clothes, starting to walk ahead saying he needs to go to pick him up. Saojiro asked who, to which he replied to pick up his father. After a while, Ayers brought his father here, who formally introduced himself as Laceryu of the Celestial Dragon clan. He has come here to meet with Lord Saojiro, who presides over the Forest of Sacred Trees. Saojiro introduced himself and casually asked if Laceryu was the father of Ayers. Laceryu had a serious expression on his face, as he apologized to Saojiro for interrupting his leisure time earlier when he sent an attack from miles away at Ayers. He could not simply stay put after learning his son was acting on his own accord. He bowed down and deeply apologized for his rudeness. Saojiro assured it's fine and asked him to raise his head, stating he has a nice son. Laceryu was relieved to hear that, then Saojiro mentioned he was just someone who settled in this forest without permission, so he can't actually preside over it. But Laceryu heard something different from Saneria, that he had cleared a lath through the Forest of Sacred Trees and had spirit beasts serving him. Saojiro stated they were actually fond of him, so they were around him of their free will. Even the wyvern here liked him and wanted to be pat. He patted the wyvern's head, and Laceryu understood it clear now that everyone came to him out of free will and Saojiro just accepted them. He nodded like that, and Laceryu apologized for the misunderstanding. He mentioned that the fairy was quite the loud mouth, saying things in a more dramatic way than they were. Saojiro knows that's definitely Saneria, and in any case he asked Laceryu to feel at home. Laceryu then asked him to accept something, as he took out a glowing orb, saying it was an apology for the trouble Ayers have caused him till now. He also wanted to give it as a token of their friendship. Saojiro wondered what it was. Laceryu explained it was a dragon's orb. Saojiro knew right away it was really precious and he can't accept something so precious just like that. But Laceryu was fine with it, considering his son would only keep troubling Saojiro in future as well. Besides, he got plenty of them. He added that this orb was something he made himself, as thanks for the sofa Saojiro gifted him earlier. He would feel honored if Saojiro could accept something he crafted himself. Saojiro can't turn it down now that Leisryu put it like that, so he accepted the orb, and Leisryu told him that the orb has the blessing of water, which was something like Saojiro's divine powers. It could draw pure water out of it. So Saojiro won't have to worry about any water-related disasters in future. Saojiro was amazed he was given something this incredible just like that. Then Leisryu suggested he could even have pure, clean, hot water. Saojiro thought about the way Leisryu put it, and it immediately made him realize what Leisryu was trying to interpret. He was extremely happy for some reason and wished to look forward to their friendship. As they shook hands, he assured Leisryu his son was more than welcome anytime. Leisryu then had one more thing to say. He actually wanted to request a pat on Wyvern's head. While Leisryu was enjoying patting Wyvern's head, Saojiro was wondering if Leisryu gave this gift with intentions of making this place his hangout too. That aside, he figured this orb could be of help to build a bath. This was seriously some great help, and Mischa noticed Saojiro's crafting spirit had awakened once again, making her wonder what he'll make this time. Saojiro went around to pick a spot for their future bath site, and Mac followed him around, so he asked Mac not to dig any holes in this area. First, he had to clear weeds and rocks, then check the ground level. He asked Katama's help for this, after which he had Katama dig the space meant for bath. Then he compacted the whole surface with craft gear. Next comes installation of water pipes handled by Katama, and the drainage would be linked to river water. Katama then made water channels, and slowly Saojiro had the surface covered in rocks with help of Ayano. She asked if this much was good enough. He thanked her for help and then flattened the rocky surface. Next, he tampered the earth mixture over the entire surface. The process mainly consisted of using clay and sandy soil to make a mixture of concrete, and using eggshells for floor mixed in with water. Once the coating was done, all that was left was to leave the surface to dry. Mischa used magic to handle that part to speed up drying. Saojiro recalled he had been thinking about building a bath for a while, and with everyone's help, the progress was made faster than he expected. At this rate, it didn't feel like construction, but just a hobby project done on a whim. He mentioned to Ayano that things don't always seem to go as planned. She agreed with that, and asked would not this work push back their schedule for other things a bit. He did not want to hear logic this time, and she apologized if she made him anxious. Saojiro knows him doing things on a whim, like the game Bushcraft, had made him drift a bit off course. But this workload was just right for a hobby project. And either way, he did not want to think too much about things and just enjoy them as they happen. To complete the bathtub, he cut fragrant wood into thick planks and joined them together to make a bath large enough to fit 10 people. Inside, he also built a step ledge to sit on and drilled a hole for drainage. Then I attached a waterproof film to the outside and it was done. Next, he tamped the earth a little so the water would flow to the bottom of the pit and placed some wooden foot places. Saojiro had Ayano lift the wooden bath and slowly, carefully placed it in the dug-out space. Once the tub was fitted into the pit, Saojiro used his skill to finalize its location. He surrounded the area around the bath with a dry stone structure and set up a changing area with a duckboard mat. He also made some space for rinsing off. Heirs asked why they needed a place to wash their body when the orb already produced purifying water. Saojiro replied it's more like a habit, otherwise it won't sit right with him. Now all that was left was to make a place to set the stone. After placing the stone, he recalled the instructions told by Leisryu to change the temperature and get the water flowing from the orb. It had to do something with his thoughts and touch with fingers. He tried it out and the orb got activated. The orb was now glowing, placed inside a pot held by a statue of a goddess. It looked really amazing, and Mischa and Ayano were impressed by the artwork. Saojiro stated he went with the goddess statue since it was the goddess's bath, and they told him he got great taste in designs. Saojiro mentioned earlier he was confused what to name the bath, then Leisryu helped him out, preferring to name it Goddess Bath over Dragon Bath. Ayano imagined it would have looked odd and didn't sit well with the purification bath. Now since it was Goddess's bath, all that was left for them to wait for the tub to be filled. The next day, deep within the forest, the open-air bath was all set and ready to be enjoyed. Saojiro took the first dip, and it was so good, his whole body went to rest mode and warmth spread over his shoulders. Soon other spirit beasts joined him, and it was interesting to see them enjoying the bath. He was glad the bath was properly sized for everyone to fit in, then Saneria also joined and said it was really nice. She praised his craftsmanship to prepare a bath even for her. At the same time, he heard others coming into the bath, which made him think he might have to switch with them since Mischa and Ayano were girls. Saojiro figured dividing the bath would not look great, so it was good enough to switch with each other by time. He told Ayano he would be out in a bit, but she was so busy in her thoughts of enjoying the hot water bath that she didn't hear him. Then soon another one jumped in, it was Ayers, and he remarked calling this bath a hot spring might be a stretch. Then Sojiro called out those two and asked what about someone keeping watch for monsters. Ayers told him it was no good to hog the bath all to himself, and apparently no monsters would dare approach a hot spring blessed by heavenly dragon. The weaker magical beasts would definitely be thrown off by the elves' barrier though. Ayano also jumped in when he was not noticing, not being able to wait for switching. Mr. arrived soon after and joined the bath as well. And just like this, the whole gang was in the hot spring without lacking any space. Sojiro was sure everyone liked this bath so much that no one would bathe in the river again. Though it would still take time for Mischa, who still went to the river afterwards out of habit to cool down her body. Later, Ayers was complaining when he heard Sojiro could not make bread because he was out of flour. Ayers wanted to eat bread so badly for breakfast. Sojiro mentioned he was planning a trip to the human town soon to stock up on flour. Ayers can't sit idle till then, and in the meantime in the human town, things seem to be unusual today. Sedek told Dolero he had heard Dolero had been spending quite freely these days. Dolero replied it's for the town's sake, and the main reason they could do it was because the harvest had been good. But they don't know how long this good situation would last. Sedek told him he should just be happy about it, but there's no way Dolero could just brush things off, and he was carefree as the town's Lord Sedek himself. Dolero takes his job as town's finance manager strictly. Sedek recalled this year had been the best in terms of materials they got from the sacred tree forest. Sedek has made a deal with the royal family, which has also caught adventurers' attention, and they have been interested in exploring the forest. Sedek believed the adventurers would let them know if anything strange happens in the forest. Until then, there was no role for his soldiers. There were also no monster hunting expeditions recently either. He only needs to manage guards in town gates these days. Dolero told him to watch himself and his surroundings carefully, because things have been becoming unusual. Right then, a person came bathing in with an emergency report that something wrong was going in the forest and needed utmost urgency from Lord. Sedek quickly ran outside to check, and what he and Dolero saw left them speechless as far away in the direction of forest, a huge shadow loomed over, which made them scared of the possibility of dangers they could befall them in near future. After some time, Sojiro, Ayano, and Ayers were heading to the human town Brownwalls to stock up on supplies. He wondered if the gatekeeper still remembered him. They got a ride on Ayers for most of the way, cutting down their travel time a lot, and Mischa got off partway to collect rock salt. Ayers himself was the one to offer a ride, probably because he might be told by his father to make up for disobeying him. And since Lacerua was tasked to take care of Wyvern, he seemed pretty happy with this. Once they reached the town's gate, they saw there were a lot of soldiers and adventurers up ahead. They wondered if their entry would take longer. One of the guards saw Sojiro and recognized him as the guy who came with the elf earlier. They immediately stopped him, wanting to question him, then Sedek stopped them and greeted Sojiro himself, saying he had a feeling Sojiro might have come. Sojiro tried to ask Sedek what was going on, but Sedek just asked him to get inside, bypassing the guards checking. Sedek can't just keep the Lord of the Sacred Forest, who has come calmly to visit, waiting outside. He welcomed him with open arms in front of everyone, and Sojiro could feel everyone's stares at him. He didn't understand why Sedek was calling him Lord of Forest. Then Sedek mentioned Sojiro was really amazing, as he slew a great demon beast without breaking a sweat and also lives alongside elves. Sojiro just went along with whatever he said, thinking he might have a reason for it. He also asked his friends to come in as well. Ayano and Ayers were pleased to see they get VIP treatment, and the guard assured other people now that the Lord of Forest was here, they don't need to fear the dragon. Ayano asked Sojiro if he knew the lord of this town, and Sojiro claimed he never really met him. Then she informed him Sedek was actually the lord of this town. Sedek smiled, while Sojiro respectfully bowed down to apologize, not knowing that before. Sojiro claimed it's his fault for not introducing himself before. After he took Sojiro to the town, Sojiro bought supplies he needed and gave them to Ayano to take them back with her. Ayers decided to walk around with Ayano, leaving him with Sedek. Dolero greeted Sojiro and said they should talk inside. He was served snacks, as he was questioned about his recent situation in the forest. Sojiro thought about what to say. Dolero assured him not to worry, he just wanted to know who made the items made by Sojiro. It's to know more about the products so they could value them properly. Sojiro told them stuff, including he was the one to make them, which left both Sedek and Dolero speechless. And to think Sojiro was living with a nightmare beast, a black wolf, a legendary moth beast spirit, talked about in ancients with extremely powerful and precious thread. And they say even elves hardly get to lay their eyes on them. Sojiro figured that must be why Mischa was surprised when Musubai showed up, and Sedek and Dolero figured things like that must be normal for him. Then they thought of asking Saojiro about that thing, which had been worrying them, and Sedek asked about the thing they saw before Saojiro arrived. A shadow of a huge dragon looming over the forest. He asked Saojiro if he knew anything about that, to which Saojiro replied it was actually the boy Sedek met earlier, one with white hairs. It was heirs of the Heavenly Dragon clan and they got a ride from her. Sedek's jaw dropped open, as he learned it was a heavenly dragon, the one said to be sleeping from thousands of years far to the west. Saojiro recalled heirs did say he came from the west. He noticed their reactions and realized Mischa was right to let him know beforehand how big of a deal it was for legendary beasts to show up around him. Sedek then requested Saojiro to keep the identity of heirs, a secret from others around the town. He didn't mind but asked why so, to which he replied that a visit from a heavenly dragon would certainly throw the town into chaos. So it's better that heirs keep a low profile so they all could live comfortably. Saojiro realized he was right, since dragons were a big deal after all. And he seemed far stronger than any demon beast, so it's a given people would fear it and panic. Whereas heirs just snuck into his base like it was a cat cafe and began. Heirs also wanted to keep his identity a secret from town people. Saojiro was glad Heirs was aware of his rarity. Sedek asked Saojiro if his goal was to clear the forest. He wanted to know what else he could learn from him. Saojiro then smiled and recalled Sedek likes to paint as a hobby. Saojiro told him that he just wants to live a retired life comfortably like him. Although, while he lives comfortably, he does sometimes feel some guilt, knowing he doesn't have any grand reason for doing anything. But Sedek assured him it's fine. Humans were better off feeling a bit of guilt, no matter if they were working or just slacking off. Dolero reminded Sedek all the time he only died slacking off painting, and Sedek kind of wanted to live a life outside of prioritizing work. Dolero did understand what he meant, and that confirmed Sedek's words that everyone has guilt and it's fine, as long as they won't overdo themselves. Sedek asked if he said a pretty good thing just now. Dolero reminded Sedek just because he talks like this, he won't let Sedek retire so easily from the town lord's position. Their current situation was the most difficult one in their history. Dolero then asked Saojiro more about his life, and also how come Ayano of Black Sea was with him. Saojiro didn't know they were called Ayano Black Sea, and he was worried now if Ayano and heirs would be fine being left on their own around the town. Meanwhile, heirs and Ayano were going to the guild, since she wanted to kind of show her face at the guild, as she had been absent ever since she went to the forest and just stayed there. So, it would be a pain if they kicked him out for being missing, thinking she might have died. Also, she wanted to keep herself updated with information, since Big Brother Saojiro was thinking of starting a business. So if it was something even adventurers would like, she could help pitch the products to the guild. Besides, she might really become popular now that she was an adventurer who went to the forest and came back alive. She was feeling thrilled, wondering what kind of reaction they would give. Heirs told her she was giving a creepy smile, then she realized that all she had been doing in the forest was just floating heavy things around, and sleeping around on the sofa, basically got pampered the whole time with delicious food at that. So she doesn't know for sure what to do now. Does she really deserve any recognition for something like that? Or should she at least fake it by releasing her aura in a cool way in front of others? Heirs told her people were staring at them a bit much, because she was giving off a bit of an overwhelming aura around people. People were starting to get scared of her and wonder if she was about to attack them. Some recognized she was the Dark Mage. She was shocked, not realizing she leaked her mana by mistake. Heirs cheered for her to blow up people if she wanted to. She told him not to say things like that around people. Heirs found it boring and said since she won't do anything, he might have a bit of fun. She just stopped Heirs and ran off with him. People wonder what was that about, and moreover did the Dark Mage get a companion after all this time. They can't help but wonder what she went through in the forest of sacred trees. Inside the guild, Heirs felt like this place was too crowded, and Ayano told him it was normal, but inside she also feels like there were a bit too many adventurers today. Heirs looked at food here and it smelled bad to him. A guy noticed his reaction, then he just gave off a plain smile, which won the guy's heart in an instant. Ayano can't take her eyes off this guy, he just becomes the center of attention wherever he goes. She carried Heirs with him and said the one she got business with was ahead. Heirs looked at her, taking him by hand, as she went to the receptionist and apologized for being away for a long time. She showed her guild card to confirm her identity, but the receptionist told her she didn't need to do that since she already knew who Ayano was. When Heirs heard Ayano's nickname, the Black Sea, he told her that was so cool. Then the receptionist said she was glad Ayano was still alive, since everyone was thinking she must have died in the forest. Ayano knew they would think like this, and the receptionist told her now people won't think of Ayano the same way anymore. since she managed to come back alive without a single speck of dirt on her. And even her expressions looked even better and her clothes were sparkling, as if she didn't go through that much danger. The receptionist wondered what kind of magic made that happen. Ayano figured she was indeed eating much better food than before, and Musubai made these clothes for her. The receptionist asked who Musubai was. Ayane replied it was a silky moth, a legendary beast spirit. She was surprised to hear that and asked if Ayano managed to conquer the forest. Ayano denied it's not like that, there was someone living in that forest, and she was kind of picked up by him by being offered food. It didn't come out that cool, and heirs added in short Yano was being kept like a pet just like him. Yano can't deny the situation could be explained any differently. Then some guys came, after hearing her story from the side and wanted to have a moment of conversation with her. They came here after rumors about the forest spread, and to think they found a lead already was time saver. He asked if she was really Ayano of the Black Sea, and she seemed to be clearing the forest just fine. While they looked at her, she did not think guys like these would come to her this quickly. They offered Ayano to help her out with conquest of the forest, while heirs counted them and confirmed if they were only 6. Baldy asked heirs who the hell he was. When they noticed his horns, they figured he must be a beast man. Heirs told them if they go to the forest, all 6 of them would be corpses in no time. So they should stop talking informally with someone stronger than them. Baldy was pissed off by his words, and he rudely grabbed Heir's collar, telling him to be prepared for consequences for disrespecting them. Ayres told him to keep his own words in mind then, as he just threw him off like a speck of dirt he just removed. Baldy hit the wall with a loud slam and fell unconscious on the ground. Yano did not think Ayres would start causing trouble this early, while the leader of those guys was a bit taken aback by what just happened. Ayres came laughing, telling them all to come at him at once if they really wanted a fight. That same applies to all the other adventurers in guild as well, being prepared to go on a rampage. Ayres began unleashing punches at whomever charged at him, and soon enough he beat them up one by one, while laughing and holding back his strength. He openly challenged them to come at him with everything they got, creating more chaos around the guild. The receptionist made it clear that if they were really going to fight inside the guild, the loser would have to pay for the damages. Yano told her to act more like a receptionist and just stop it. Apparently, she wanted something like this to happen, since there were so many new adventurers recently, that she wished someone like Yano would keep these idiots in check. Yano don't think she was cut out for those kind of things, and then she told receptionist that she would be staying in the forest for a while. While adventurers were being thrown around at the walls, Yano was casually talking to the receptionist, and told her she came here just to let her know that. Yano looked at the guy who just got thrown over, and she figured it's time for her to leave now. The guy on the ground called her out and said she got a words from the royal capital to participate in an expedition. He got a letter from the king here as well, but the moment Ayano saw it, she seemed to be extremely pissed off, and the guy and receptionist could feel the chills in the air. Ayano straight up told them if they managed to deliver that letter to her in the forest, she would consider accepting the job. She then raised her hand towards Ayres and summoned her octopus hands to confine him in place. Ayres still can't dodge these attacks from her, and Ayano casually managed to stop everyone creating noise around. She told the receptionist to consider this help as a greeting, and she also left something to cover the damages. After which she began to walk away, taking her leave. The receptionist called her out to ask why she was leaving already, then she noticed Ayano just placed a rockfire bear's pelt, which was in itself an extremely precious item. Just this fur alone could keep them living comfortably for 4 years, which makes everyone realize once again just how strong Ayano was. She also single-handedly stopped everyone, including the beastman guy who beat them all up without breaking a sweat. They figured this must be the difficulty of the forest, and they all began wondering just who might be the master of forest who Ayano mentioned. They thought he must be a pretty strong guy to have Ayano as his underling, and she even turned down an invitation from the royal palace. They thought that maybe they should start taking things more seriously, because if they went to a forest like this they would have been wiped out. Ever since that day, the adventurers began challenging each other to improve their fighting skills, wanting to become strong enough to maybe explore the forest of sacred trees one day. But all of them also realized one more thing that day, that their struggles were all meaningless, because the real powerhouses lived in the forest, to whom they can't even be compared with. Yano told Ayres she would be heading back to the forest now. Ayres asked if she was done already. She figured there's no need to stay since she did what she came here for. Ayres told her she spoke harshly only when she was talking to him, but she reminded him he was free to change his opinion if he thought he was strong enough to do so. Ayres knows the truth well, and that aside, he told Ayano that she would not become popular if she had accepted the letter from the royal palace. Ayano didn't expect he was listening even when he was in a brawl. She replied she didn't feel like she wanted to go anywhere, and she didn't need anything like becoming popular anymore. She does think it would make her life here easier if only she had accepted the letter. And it's also true that if she went to the royal capital, she might be offered all sorts of privileges and popularity that she wanted in the past. But that shiny and dreamy life just does not entice her anymore, because ever since she met Saojiro, he was the first one to look at her like a person. And everyone else there also treated her like family, including Mischa, who treated her like a younger sister. She came to the conclusion that the real reason she came to this world was to be able to spend time with people like Mischa and heirs, who see her for who she was, not something like a tool like those royal palace guys. She was sure it won't do any good in joining the royal palace, no matter what they offer. Ayres was clear of her stand now, and she figured it might be the case. And rather than being inside the royal palace, she thinks it would be much better living in the forest. Now she just wanted to live there comfortably with everyone. It made her happy, and she wanted to go home quickly. Ayres claimed he wanted to go somewhere. She told him to ask Big Brother first before going anywhere else.